Jennifer Benjamins, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Do you prefer Jen?
Jen's cool. You can call me anything except for late for dinner.
Oh, Shanupa. Hey, she's gonna be here all
As
night,
my
folks.
mom
That's
said.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna start out the interview with how I start out most of these. Where did you get your interest in law enforcement from? Where did it come from?
Uh, so I was born and raised in Las Vegas.
Wait, wait,
I
wait,
was one
wait,
of the
wait.
original.
Time out. I don't know anybody that's been born and raised in Las Vegas. Every time I've gone to Vegas, any friends that I have that live there, nobody is from there. You are an anomaly, Jen.
I am. I'm also called a unicorn sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's not very many of us. I was
Wow.
born in 77. The population probably around that time may have been around 300, 400,000. Now we're at like 3 million
Yeah.
something. After 48 years, this town has really, really grown. Me and my brothers were born here. My parents were actually, my mom was born in Texas. My dad was born in, I believe, Ohio. But he was a military kid, so he just travel around and they end
Sure.
up in Las Vegas together and they end up meeting and then I'm, the first kid that they had. And so growing up, we were in the very rural part of Las Vegas. Like we never went to the strip and hung out. That's not something we did. We played like regular kids where we were like, playing in the dirt, building, stuff out of whatever we can find, riding our bikes around the neighborhood. And the strip was like this distant, like light beam, far away from our house, right?
Right.
So I never really had that experience. I mean, we also never got in trouble. We never had police contact or anything like that. But I always knew my mom's relatives, her first cousins were police officers, and it still really didn't even interest me. I played sports. I played softball. I went to college for 2 years in California and played softball. And I just got an associate's degree. I wasn't really like set on really what I wanted to do yet. It was like teacher kind of came up and whatever. I just really liked going to school. So I came back, went to UNLV for a couple years, and I went to a job fair. And there was this recruiter that kind of stepped in front of me and he's like, "Have you ever thought about becoming a cop?" And I was like, "Well, no, but I'm reaching my like end of my fourth year of university and I have one, kind of was procrastinating. I had one more year left until I can actually graduate because I enjoyed school. And I had picked up that year criminal justice as a major. So I started taking a lot of those classes and I was like, wow, okay, this is really interesting. And what was more interesting to me was why people commit crimes.
Yeah.
Like, what is their background? What's the sociology of it? What's in their background that, has them commit crimes? And then, so that kind of thing really interests me. So when Ramon, who I ended up meeting again later when I was on the department, he stepped in front of me. I was like, yeah, this is probably an option for me. So I ended up applying. I didn't get in the first time, and at that time they had these things, these oral boards, and I think they probably saw through that maybe I was a little young and not very trained or prepared for the job at the time. So
Yeah.
I ended up applying again almost a year later, and so I got accepted. I actually graduated UNLV May of 2000. I had the summer off because I was playing ball, I was going to school, I was doing all that stuff. I had the summer off like normal, and then I went into the academy September of 2000. So it was just like in my mind, I thought, oh, cool, this is just like college. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be athletic and work out, and it's very scholastic, right? Because you got all this classroom time to learn all policies and procedures and the law and all that stuff. So I was like, wow, and they're paying me. That's crazy. I'm getting paid to do this,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's always good when they pay. And I see these other jurisdictions around where I just talked to a guy in St. Louis and he's like, I'm thinking about going into the academy, but you have to pay to go through the academy and then another jurisdiction can come and pick you up. And I was like, wow, okay, that's crazy because, you can just get that post certificate or whatever they call it there
Right.
and then a department can pick you up because you're already post certified or whatever. So I was like, wow, that's crazy because I got paid to go. And so when I went through, originally there was I mean, we had like 90 people in this academy. It was quite a large academy for Metro. And
Yeah.
we were at the old building, which was like ancient on Mojave is the road that it was on. Now they have a big, beautiful building. But there it was, run down and I mean, it was okay. It was just old. But we were the last academy to go through that old academy. So when we were there, there was 90 of us. The first week, they kind of like give you all your equipment and they're really cool, right? They're like, this is how bad it got when I knew, like, I had never been in a police car. Was never shot a gun. And here I am the first week of the academy, which is like the prep part of it before really the shit hits the fan. And I remember Bobby Smith was one of the TAC officers, and we were in this back Connex box, and he's like, well, he's giving out equipment and he's asking about holsters. And he goes and he's giving all the equipment because you got all the base equipment when you got there.
Right.
And he said, what hand do you shoot with? And I was like, well, I don't know. Because I throw right-handed, but I write left-handed, so I really don't
Oh,
know
wow. Okay.
like what yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, but I'm predominantly everything I'm dominant right?
Okay.
Everything but eating and writing is my left hand. So I was like, I just remember looking at him and he was above me and he goes, "What?" I go, I don't know. I'd say right-handed is probably what I'm on. And then he has me do this thing with my finger and where my finger
Which eye
goes.
dominance you are. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I was like, he goes, all right, we're gonna give you a right-handed holster, right? So I was like, oh man, what did I get myself into? And I really wasn't, I don't think I was like worried. I don't remember ever. I try to think back, like, was I worried or scared or nervous or whatever? I was just like, I didn't want to screw up, but I didn't feel like I was, you know,
Well,
like
how
this was
old were
something I was
you?
gonna fail.
How old
I
were
was
you?
23.
Oh my God, you're a baby. Yeah, I mean, it's
I was a
like
baby
at
too.
23, you don't have a ton of life experience. This is, college is a bubble. That's not even close to
Oh yeah.
being reality. Yeah, I mean, I got married when I was 23 and I look back, I'm like, what was I thinking? Holy shit, that was the practice wife, but it just at that
We
stage
call
of
that
the
the
game.
standard issued wife, the first standard issued wife.
Yeah, it's just crazy how life works. I was a little bit older. I was 30 when I got into the academy.
Mm,
I was on the waiting list for 4 years. And it
wow.
was a very similar deal where it was, I got paid and I thought I died and went to heaven because it was 8 to 5 and Monday through Friday. I've never ever had a job, and I was working since I was 16, and I worked all the way through college. I worked full time in college. Really stupid, but whatever. No loans, and I'm just like a 40-hour work week. I mean, I would work out afterwards. You would there'd be study groups or whatever. So obviously it was more than 40 hours, but
Yeah.
I'm like, and I sleep at night. This is crazy. And I remember the union president talked to us and he's like, well, don't get used to this for too long. It's a 6 month academy.
Mm,
After that, it might be 20 years before you see D's. So enjoy
wow.
this while you got it, kids. And
Yeah.
so it's like, all right, I will.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So when that, sorry.
Ah, there's a cat on your
Sorry.
table.
That's Killer Norman.
Oh
So,
my.
yeah, he's got a reputation. Um, so after that happened, and then, so that week, it's kind of that prep thing. They're just going over ground rules and like all this stuff and locker and whatever. And that fourth day, because we did 410s, even in the academy.
Mm.
So that last day, they came out and just started yelling at us, like, get the fuck out. Da, da, da. And I was like, what just happened? Like, I was so like discombobulated by everything. So we're running out. I call my friend who was a deputy chief at the time. And I'm like, oh my God, they're just like yelling at us for no reason. I'm so like pissed. And she goes, Jen, that's what happens. They tear you down to build you back up and resilience and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, but this is really unnecessary in my mind, right? Because I also did not come from a military background. That also didn't help.
Right.
So so the first inspection was the following, and you have to have your uniform on. And, and it was very, I wouldn't say hodgepodge of a uniform. It was very thin. It wasn't like what you get when it's
Yeah,
just cheaper version, right?
right.
So we're there. You have
It's
to,
not the police uniform that you wore for 25 years or whatever. It's
yeah,
academy uniforms are usually, like we call them mechanic uniforms because it was the same
yeah,
materials like
exactly.
what mechanics, wear those blue, like mechanic outfits,
Yeah,
this with just a sewn on patch, where your badge is
yeah.
supposed to be and an
Yeah, it
ID
was
card.
so thin. They were so thin that so we're in this inspection and you have to be like, I cut my hair. My hair was super short.
Yeah.
My academy was the first academy that girls did not have to cut their hair. But I
Oh
was
wow.
like, I want the least amount of problems
Sure, why not?
necessary.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was like, cut that off, like, so I have one less thing to worry about. And I remember, like, and you're sitting there and your gun's got to be clean, your uniform. I mean, if there's like a string hanging off, you got yelled at, like all this
Yep.
stuff. And then
Absolutely.
you're regurgitating whatever 400 code, because we have 400 codes
Mm,
versus the 10 codes or whatever. So,
yeah.
or like they gave us whatever needed to be memorized at that point. So we're just like regurgitating it out. And it's just like chaos, all this yelling. And in front of us, because this was on the side of the road as well as we're in this parking lot, there's these guys who are current police officers are sitting there with coolers and chairs and umbrellas. And they're like yelling at us and laughing. Like they're like, oh my God, look at this guy. Da, da, da.
That's
And I'm like,
awesome.
what kind of circus did I sign up for? So there was a guy, Bonkovich, who ended up being one of my good friends through the academy, who really supported me and helped me out, guided me through this whole mess, kept me grounded, maybe. And I remember him getting yelled at. And I told you how, like, this mechanic uniform was like super thin.
Yep.
Well, underneath his uniform, he had to wear a white shirt, right? So in the back, you could see it through his shirt was like a sailor girl like through his shirt.
Oh my
And I
God.
remember him getting yelled at. And he goes, "What is that spotted shirt?" Ah! And I'm like, "What the? Like, why would you not?" Like, he was
That
just
is
so
so
funny.
funny.
He had zero fear. He ended up retiring as one of the lieutenants of SWAT. So I mean, he was a boxer. Like he was a
Okay.
badass. And so he had no like he just laughed it off. And there were some other guys in there who looked at it like it was nothing because they were prior military. We had a Navy
Sure.
SEAL in my platoon,
Okay.
and like he had fucking zero, F's given. Like that guy could have been yelled. And I remember one time he got yelled at. I think it was like it might have been it was a different inspection. And he got yelled at because this one TAC officer hated him because she just had something with him. And
Yeah.
um, she starts going, "What is this ant doing crawling up your leg?" And he's like, "Ma'am, sneak attack, ma'am." And I'm just like, "Dude, you're gonna make us run!" Like, what a butthead.
Sneak
So, but
attack.
he had
I
like,
love it.
it was just funny. It was so like flowing. So the academy, when we started, we had 90 something, and there was probably 10 women. And I say probably because clearly you could see what's going on in my mind.
Right.
Like, I'm just trying to keep afloat myself, which I was okay with. Scholastic, right? Tell me to memorize stuff, I'll memorize it. I'll get it.
Yep.
400 codes, memorize it, got it. The uniform, I try to control what I can control. That wasn't really something I really worried about either. But it was like, what, just worry about myself. And so I knew there was at least 10 at the time. And what we ended up graduating was three of us. And then in field training, we graduated two of us because
Now,
one girl didn't make it.
let me ask you this. Were there different standards for the female cops for PT compared to the guys?
Nope. It
Okay.
was all the same. Yeah.
As well, it should be. In my humble opinion, it should be because on the street, nobody gives two shits if you're a
Yeah.
female, a male, how old you are, or whatever. It doesn't matter. None of that matters.
Right. You're exactly right. Like if I always give this example when I'm speaking about use of force. It's like it's me and let's say Bonkovich, right? Who's like six something, 6'5", boxer, like whatever. Me and him go up. We're going up the same Mike Tyson. They're not going to
Right.
give me, some littler, even a Mayweather. Like, I don't want to say even that because that's probably worse. But like, we're going up against the same people. And so I feel like when you start lowering standards for women, especially, that's not good. That's
No.
not good because we're still going out and taking on the same suspects,
Yeah,
right? And doing the same job.
lowering the bar is not going to help anything for anyone. And obviously the PT that you're doing in the academy has there's two reasons. One, yeah, to get you into better shape. Some people came in stellar shape. We had guys that played in the NFL. We had guys
Yeah.
that were like superstars. And we had some chunky people as well. And
Mhm.
everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. I hated to run. I couldn't stand running, but I could do it. But
Mhm.
it's like give me some weights. I'll do calisthenics till the cows come home. I remember
Yeah.
they do that baseline test to see where you're at when you first get in the academy. And I don't know what the number was, but I pounded out about 75 push-ups in under 2 minutes.
Nice.
And I was
Yeah.
doing a front leaning rest because I was going to do more. And the instructor came running over. This is one of the funniest moments I ever had. He comes running over and he starts screaming in my ear. He says, "Why did you stop?" And I'm like, "Just taking a break, sir. I'll give you more." And he says, "There isn't going to be any theme music, O'Donnell, when you're running down the alley after some shitbag at 2 o'clock in the morning with a gun, is there?" And I'm like, "No, sir, no theme music." And I'm like, "What does that have to do with anything?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll give you some more, man." I broke over 100. And
Well,
but when it came to the run, I'm just like, oh, does this suck? I
yeah,
just
I was not. I was a sprinter, like because I played softball, so I can get you from home to first, first, second. I mean, I can do a whole home
mm.
run. After that, I'm about done, right? So we were running, and you have to do cadence while you're running,
You're right.
right? So, and I'm like, I would just mouth it because if I put any more energy into the run part, like with as well as exert energy by talking, I was just like a because I was like, no, I can't. And I was like middle of the pack. I wasn't in the front clearly, but I wasn't in the back. But I just couldn't do the cadence with the run because
See,
I was like, oh my God, I got to save my energy to run because long distance was not fun.
the theory behind the cadence is it forces you to breathe. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that's true or not, but that's the theory. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll yell that out. But they don't even do that anymore. I mean, I'm not going to talk about how watered down our academy has become, and it got really bad. Now it's starting to like come back up again. But I remember I was there for training for something or other, and I knew one of the sergeants. I was a sergeant at the time, and it was break time, and I see these recruits out in the hallway, and I'm like, "Ooh, you got quite the bunch there." There was dudes with like Santa Claus bellies, like over
Oh,
their belts. Their guts were like, and they were young guys. They were like in their early 20s. And I said, "You got your work
yeah.
cut out for you, dude." Yeah, I said, "Good luck with that." And he says, "They're getting ready to graduate." And I'm like, "What? You've got to be
Yeah.
kidding me." He says, "Yeah, we lowered our standards big time." And I'm like, and
Yeah.
then something crazy happens on the street, and everybody's scratching their heads, going, "How could this have happened?" I know how it could have happened because your standards have gone down into the toilet. And it's like
Mhm.
everybody gets a trophy, everybody wins, blah 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 blah. That ain't life. So,
Yeah.
oh, so you were one of the only females in this academy class, and
To graduate field training. Yep.
yeah. So, how was that for you? I mean, any funny or disturbing stories from those days?
Well, during the academy, I mean, I really, really leaned on some really great people that were great men that
Yeah.
were in that class, right? Like, I honestly, I didn't lean on the other women. I didn't go girl power, let's all get together, because I looked for people who were chill, like a Mosier, like Bonkovich. There were a couple other ones in that group that were like, we did that study group after, right? And
Yeah.
we trained after and they were really supportive and they were just like whatever you need, Jen, we'll get you, we're going to be your biggest champion. And I'm like, great, because I don't know, it's the mind stuff that was like really what I wasn't used to. Like, okay, I don't understand this whole dynamic of what goes on. And then there was just just the paramilitary part of it I
Yeah.
just wasn't used to. And so it was a lot of me relying on men to really support me, guide me, and get me through everything. Even the runs and the exercise and all that stuff, it was like, they weren't putting me with the other girl to do, um, you know, defensive tactics
Sure.
or
As
that
well,
stuff.
they
I'm
shouldn't.
with another guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
that's
was
the way it
like,
should
yeah,
be.
yeah, I was like, put me with somebody else, and sometimes I had some partners who were like, oh, like really weren't so thrilled that they were my partner, because, maybe I'm a woman. I have to say this, like, I'm not as strong as most men. So, when they got me as a partner, I might have been an easier, sparring partner or, when we did, jujitsu or something or ground defense. I mean, I'm not as strong as those guys. And I know I learned very quickly, especially during the academy, what my strengths were and what my weaknesses were, right?
Right.
But my weaknesses were really, you're fucking Mike Tyson. That's a different story of how I approach it versus how Bonkovich would approach it, right?
Right.
So I learned quickly, like I gotta use my words, use my brain, use my emotional intelligence, if it wasn't really called that back then, but like
Right.
really my awareness of how I am in this world and how to talk to people. And that overall, that's been a theme in a lot of like use of force reports and stuff about women, and is that we have the ability to, and I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying women in general, have the ability to talk themselves out of situations, talk themselves out of use of force, have less use of force, can de-escalate. Um, I don't even want to say better, but we have that ability versus that's probably our bigger strength than fighting, right? Or being a big guy and trying to de-escalate by just putting it into custody,
Yeah,
because
I've had the opposite actually. I've had my first partner was a female, and she was fabulous. I loved working with her. We were the perfect combination. And we had other females on the shift that they could make Mother Teresa a fighter. They could make Gandhi, a no person. They would write checks
really,
that they could not cash.
yeah,
They would
that's not
talk
good.
big when the big guys were around. And it's like
Yeah.
nobody wants to fight. Nobody
No.
I don't care how big, bad Navy SEAL, boxer, or whatever, nobody wants to do that because you're going to get hurt no matter how good you are. It's an uncontrolled environment. And it's just the last thing you want to do. But there are times where there is no choice. There is no magic words. There is no magic whatever. It's time. It's go time. It's just the way it is. But yeah, and
Mhm.
I've experienced both sides of the spectrum where it's like, okay, yeah, she
Yeah.
did a really good job, talking this guy down. Or it's like, could you just shut your freaking mouth, please? We had this under control. You're blowing it up. You're the gasoline on this fire right now. Go away. We're better off without you. I've
Yeah.
I've experienced both, and it just, yeah, it just. But same thing with dudes. I've been with dudes that could, man, they're so good at talking with people. They could be stand-up
Mhm.
comedians, and they just from a deadly force situation to the guys like thanking him for going into handcuffs. Some people
Yeah.
have that gift, and it is
Yeah.
amazing to watch. And I'm like, wow, that's good shit, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, what
You're
was your?
right.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. You're right. Like some of the things that I experienced though, and I don't know if you did that or experienced this, was like I was told that the third girl that retired or that left the department in field training was like one who didn't want to arrive first. Like, so to me, and I knew some guys who kind of I felt like did that as well. It's like let's say there's a robbery call or a fight call or whatever, they're circling another
Yeah,
block and
yep, I
waiting
know
for
those.
someone else to
Yep.
get there first, right? So that was my understanding of what happened to this other female that
Oh,
didn't make
okay.
it, was there was a robbery call and she kind of circled around, which it happens with guys and girls. There's guys who should not be police officers.
All day
There's
long.
women that
Yes,
should not be, right? Like it's not like all, girls and like
but
that big thing with
from there, what was your first day on the job like when you started field training, and what was field training for Vegas?
So field training, so you start at one station. We all got split up, right? Our whole academy. I think probably when we graduated the academy, so I told you we started at 90 something. We graduated at 36.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they weeded out a lot through the academy. And so we got split up. Luckily, I just went the across the parking lot to Northeast Area Command, and it was me and another partner, another academy mate. And we went there. And the first day, I'm sitting down in the back, and they're like, "Oh, who's your so I get Tater, Tom Stoll. And great guy, older guy, like so funny, old school. And this was
Yeah.
like an old school station, Northeast Area Command. It was in the northeast side of Las Vegas, very old. There's some the Mormon temple was over there, a little Mormon kind of section over there, and
Yeah.
then the rest is predominantly Hispanic. So it's day shift. We get in there and I'm like, okay, this briefing, the first couple weeks are kind well, first week is kind of easy. You don't really drive until for a couple weeks in. So the field training works like this. If you go to one station for I believe it was 8 weeks, and then you would switch to another station, and generally that second station that you went to would be the one that you stayed at, remained at. So now it's a little different. You generally go to three different stations. I believe it's 24 weeks,
24 weeks?
and 24
Oh,
weeks. And one of those you have to do in a tourist corridor, which is downtown Area Command or the Strip.
okay.
And if the Strip ends up being your third station, you're probably going to stay there because they have about 250 cops at that station.
Wow.
So, because they take on, 2 miles of the Las Vegas Boulevard
Yeah.
and some little parts outside of it. Very few residential, but
Hmm.
a lot of the whole strip. So I'm in Northeast and first day, and we kind of do a couple regular stops. My Tom is doing, all the work really, and I'm just really observing at this point because
Yeah.
it's day one. So it was day shift. It was 6:30 to 4:30. And so probably about it might have been like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something. We get a call about a guy in his backyard shooting his gun off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exciting,
Yeah. Right.
Just
Yeah.
like this 23-year-old something, going, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. It's like real life stuff now. And by the way, I just have to mention, remember I told you that I did not shoot a gun until I got into the academy, and I ended up being um actually like a very good shot. So
Well, it's
like
it's
that
funny
was a
you
good
should
thing.
mention that because either you're like a Navy SEAL sniper and it's a different mindset, it's a different whatever, but I remember our firearms instructors and they were crackerjack. They were if you were a good shot, they would make you an amazing shot. If you never fired a gun before, and we had plenty of people that never fired a gun, he would make you a very good shot. And
Mm,
people would be like, dude, I've never fired a gun. And he says, I don't care. He said, good. You don't have any bad habits.
yep.
I can train
Yeah.
you. He said, some people, you got those bad habits from years and years and years of firing weapons. He says, I can't train that out of you sometimes. So good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't shoot a
Yeah.
gun before. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and maybe that's what helped too, is like I had no bad habits. I
Yep.
mean, now I knew which hand I was supposed to shoot with, but that was like we're making progress. So when I got out, so this 1 o'clock call comes with this thing. We go out and we're like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. So we end up on an exterior perimeter and we're just listening to everything going on. And we're not like the main unit.
Okay.
And so the air unit comes, but we're just on the exterior perimeter, just making sure nobody goes past a certain way or whatever. And the air unit comes up, he starts shooting at the air unit, and I'm like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, this is like
That's
insane,
huge for your
And
first. Wow.
yeah, insane. So I'm just like, oh my gosh. So they get him into custody. I think SWAT shows up, gets him out, whatever. And so they're like, we need a unit to transport him. So, Tom was like, yeah, we'll take him because we were kind of close to the house anyway. So we roll up, we put him in the back seat, and I'm in the passenger seat, and we're driving to jail. And I'm just like, oh my God, what a crazy day like
That's
this
awesome.
was. Like how like I got everything. I went to a domestic, we did a car stop. went to lunch and like all this stuff, like an actual real work day as a cop. And then we ended on this, like, I'm like texting my dad. I'm like, oh my God, you should see what we just did. It was so crazy. And this guy, and so we drop him off so the detectives can do everything, because we really didn't have to do a lot either because he was arrested by the specialized unit. And so I just remember like that day I was like, man, this is gonna be a great life, like a great
Yeah,
career and just
absolutely.
exciting. Something different every day. Like that's not
Yep.
gonna when is that gonna happen again?
Or you're
Which
sitting behind a desk somewhere, counting whatever, blah blah blah. And I talk to my friends that I went to college with or whatever, and I'm like, God, your job sucks. Mine is awesome.
yeah. Yeah, and that's the oddity, I guess, that especially when you're a woman and you're a cop, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Um, doesn't help for dating. It doesn't help for your family dynamic because, not only are you the mom, but you're the cop mom,
Yeah.
and you are automatically the problem solver of everything. Even my dad's like, well, you're the cop. You should know what to do. And I'm like, I freaking never did this in my life. Like how it's just the assumption that you are the one to fix and because that's what cops are, right? They're
Right.
therapists, they're
Oh yeah,
disciplinarians, they're,
absolutely. You're a social
all these
worker.
things. Yeah, and then when
You're a marriage counselor. You're a therapist. You're
you're
this. You're
everything.
that. Yeah, you're a Swiss Army
Yeah.
knife of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're a woman. And this is what I talk a lot about women about their role and that they need to figure out the balance of this because it will drive you crazy is like, and I found this when I went to Southwest Area Command and I had a good squad, I was on swing shift, and you end up being everyone's therapist on your squad, right? You're like everyone's talking point, like, oh, my wife did this or my girlfriend did that, and what should I do about this? And my kids and like all this stuff. And like you end up being like the sister, the aunt, the therapist, like all these things. And then when you become a really competent female, when you can do your job and your paperwork's on point and like all this other stuff and you're supporting everybody else, you end up being like the one that the sergeant then relies on
Mm,
to get everything. Hey, Jen, get everybody together. We're going to do this. Hey, Jen, I need you to teach so and so how to do this or whatever. And then you just become very reliable and the support as well mentally. So it can get really exhausting. And this is like I was just talking to somebody yesterday about this because she's like, I really got to slow down with all these things I put on myself because we're
right.
nurtured by nature anyway. So it's like, we want to help and support everyone on our team. Like I feel like those are all my brothers. And I know you guys think we're all sisters, but we also are looked at sometimes as like, okay, Jen will fix it, Jen will take care of it, Jen will do whatever. And then
Mm,
that's what I ended up being on some squads. And I'm just like, it gets a little exhausting if you don't separate, or like put some boundaries up and say, hey, you go do it, mother effer, because I'm not gonna do it.
yeah.
Or whatever.
So
But it did help when I had flat tires and I'd be like, oh my God, can you come and fix my flat tire? I would use that at least. Like, hey,
oh,
remember
that's
when I
funny.
helped you out? Can you come change my tire?
So how soon after field training did you go solo, or is that a thing in Vegas?
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the only things we do. If they could double us up, they would have to, like, we don't have enough cops to be doubled up. And
Mm,
the only time we've ever been doubled up is when we've had an officer involved shooting, where we lost an officer, or sometimes like just other kind of special events would we
sure.
have to double up. So when you get into field training and you're towards, I think it's probably the last 2 or 3 weeks of field training. It might be different now, but you go solo, and so you're a solo beat cop, and you're driving around, and then your FTO's in a completely different other car,
Oh wow.
and he's maybe shadowing you. He may be like, and it depends on where you are in
Mm,
your own training, right? Like if
yeah.
they're like, yeah, I trust her, she's out, she's going. I don't really have to be on her ass all the time. So, no, you're in solo beat and you're just by yourself. And there might be two solos who go to the same call and you guys are just trying to figure it out, because
And
you're like two.
sometimes that's the best way, I think, because you put your noodles together and you just figure it out. You don't have somebody
Yeah.
holding your hand. Obviously safety is number one concern. But if it's not, DEFCON 1 and whatever, it's like, yeah, figure this out. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
I am getting so many flashbacks. I was with like two of my classmates. We're all on probation. I don't even know what the call was. And it's like, do you know what to do? No. Do you know what to do? No. Do you know what to do? No. And it's like, should we call a sergeant? And it's like, we didn't have cell phones back then. So you couldn't like phone a friend. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, I guess. So Sarge pulls up. It was raining. I run out to his car and he rolls the window down like that much. And I'm like, really? And he says, "What you got?" And I explained to him what he said. "What do you think you should do?" And I'm like X, Y, and Z. And he just started laughing. He said, "See ya," and he just took off. And I'm like,
Mm.
so my buddies are like, "What do you say?" So I just made it up. I said, "Oh, he said we should do this." "Oh, okay, sounds good. Let's go do that." And I'm like, who knows? But nobody
Yeah.
died. Nobody went to jail.
Yeah.
It was a good day.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to like that's where they say a lot of police work is gray, right? It's
Oh,
like there is like 100% like this is black, this is white. But what policy says, what procedure says, but a lot of things are like, okay, like I don't know what, let's just support these people as best we can.
yep.
Let's just try to, do whatever we can. Let's try to approach it this way. And you're never, I can say never wrong because it's probably in the last couple of years, it's really changed about you can be wrong
Oh
by
yeah. Yep.
media or whatever, but by the decisions you make at the time that you're given them, right? Like you have to make fast decisions, and some of those decisions may not have been like maybe the best path, but it was what you thought was right at the time. And what you thought was right at the time is should be taken into account because we're can't sit here and go, well, I don't know if I should do this or do that
No, you
when
have half a second to make a decision.
it's happening.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have
absolutely.
very free. Yeah.
Now, do you remember your first day going out by yourself, like driving out of the district station or
Mhm.
whatever you call them?
Yeah, we have substations. We have 10
Subs-
substations now. At the
Okay.
time, I think we might have had like six or seven at the
Okay.
time when I was on. So we've grown a lot. I don't remember my first day. I remember the station. I remember the briefings. I remember the friends and the different calls we went to and stuff. And like, I mean, like almost like it was kind of a blur because
Yeah.
it's just so much. There's so much to take in. And I know, like I tell young officers now, I'm like, take pictures. Even if
Oh
you work
yeah.
undercover, take pictures.
I
Write
wish.
stuff down,
Yep.
journal or
Mm-hmm.
something, right? Like journal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like because you may be like me one day, 25 years later after day one and trying to remember all of these cases that you were
Yep.
on and whatever. I mean, I had a binder for a long time when I went to Vice. I had a binder where I was like keeping all of my arrests because there's a 3-inch binder of just the arrests I made during my TDY, which was 3 months. Like I was like, they put me to work in that 3 months, and I remember keeping every single arrest report. And I remember going to test for Vice and during the oral board, and I brought this binder in. I'm like, this is how many arrests I made, and they were like, "You're a
That's
dork."
awesome. No, that's cool.
But
I
they
I would have been
knew
impressed.
me.
I would have been impressed. I'd be like, you know what? She's
Yeah.
squared away. That's totally cool.
It,
I
it
like
impressed
that.
one guy out of the three because
Yeah.
two of them were from Vice and they knew my work and they were like, we need this girl up here. But this other guy was like, it's usually somebody from a robbery or some other unit. And they're
Yeah.
just like, wow, like she came in with this binder. I was like, these are all my arrests. Would you like to see them? And they're
That's so funny. So, how long were you on probation? How long is probation for a Vegas cop?
I think the probation was a year and a half. So you would have total of 2 years with the academy is about
Wow.
6 months, and then you'd have
Damn.
so you have another year and a half to be on probation. So if I remember right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when I got off probation, I was like, okay, cool. Like I think I'm doing pretty good.
Were there squad cameras or body worn cameras when you were new?
No, and I don't remember when those exactly came out, but I think it
You were
was
working when they did come out, though, right?
yeah, I was
Okay.
working when they came out, and I was working when tasers came out.
Okay. Yeah.
So tasers came
Yep.
out, I think, '03. I want to say
Mm,
'03 or before, somewhere around there. And I remember when they first came out, all these TAC officers were like doing the full 5 seconds, and they're like doing this whatever, like all crazy, do the taser. And we were given the option to do the 1 second ride. And so all of us lined up together. We all linked arms, and then they hooked one on each side, and we did the 1 second. And I was like, yep, this thing's effective. I'm using it. Like the 1 second was enough for me. Like, so we had a lot of guy. I mean, we used the taser quite often at that point. You know, you get a new toy and you start to believe in it,
Oh yeah.
and you see how effective it is. You just start using it, you know, and that actually the taser ended up kind of overuse and underuse of pepper spray,
Yes.
which I noticed, right? So that was kind of an interesting thing because we would pepper spray everybody before we had the taser. Like
Yep.
everybody who deserved it, I should say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the taser came out and it was like, well, now we're tasering everybody. But a very effective tool, just the sound of it alone, you know, people are very shocked, like shocked.
Shocked. Oh, whoa, hey. Hey there.
So, but the you know that that's the one thing they're like, oh, screw this. You know, I'm not going to take that ride because I see so much on TV and falling
Yeah.
over and you know the whole you know eating crap on the ground because you took that ride. So
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, for our department, it's like we had the taser pilot program. Only a few cops got them. It was fun to
Mhm.
watch because at first they were very taser shy. They were like real pensive about using it, and then they became Dirty Harry or Dirty Harriet with the taser. Yeah, it's like, hey, it's a loud music. You don't have to tase everybody, dude. Yeah, chill
Yeah.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like he said no. I'm like, yeah, okay, you need a little more than that, okay? It's like, oh my God. But yeah, an
Yeah.
interesting tool, that's for sure.
Yeah,
So
but think of it like in like me though, right? Is like that's kind of another muscle I
yeah, it's an
have
equalizer.
in a
Yeah,
way. Yeah, like I'm
absolutely.
like, oh, big dude, I'm gonna fall big then, you know,
Yep.
if I get it on there right. If not, and I just piss him off, then we're
Yeah,
gonna have some
that's
problems.
right. And I remember I had one guy that we tased, I don't know, like 3 or 4 times with the probes and the drive stuns, and he giggled every time. And we're like,
Oh,
he was completely like batshit crazy. Like he
yeah.
thought we were bats attacking him. But that's
Mhm.
that's another story for another day. But
I'm gonna
I'm
say
like,
that was PCP.
this is going to be a very bad day. You're like, this sucks. And it's like,
Yeah,
all
but
right,
pepper spray sometimes doesn't work on people too. Like I got
I'm
into a
okay.
fight with a girl, and she did not that shit did not phase her at all.
Well, the thing about pepper spray is, okay, it doesn't work in the rain that great. If the wind is
Mm,
blowing the wrong direction, you're going to wind up pepper spraying your partner in an enclosed area. If you start, yard guarding and fogging with that thing, everybody's choking on that shit. So
yeah.
it's not 100%, like you said. And I was sprayed numerous times, like in the academy and for training
Mhm.
afterwards. I was pepper ball trained. We had the pepper ball rifles,
Yeah.
and I, of course, my eyes would water. All kinds of weird stuff's going on, but I could function just fine. For whatever reason,
Mm,
it didn't bother me that much. And some
yeah.
people, they're like, "Ah," they're crying and shit. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? It's not that bad. Jeez.
Yeah. No,
So
I wasn't that bad in the academy either. I wasn't that bad. And then we got gas. What do you call it?
oh, tear gas.
There's Yeah, we got tear gas. That sucked.
Ooh,
That sucked
yeah.
because we had to walk through it, and I had makeup, and my makeup was all running, and like my nose is running, and like I was just like, oh my God, this sucks. It sucks, you
Yeah,
know.
you're not
But
camera
I didn't
ready
think
after
that.
that.
Yes, and then I thought what's interesting was when they pepper sprayed you in the academy, and they don't do that now,
They
but
don't?
or they don't. They no, they pepper spray you, but what they don't do is
Oh,
let you drive home. You have to find a ride home
come
now.
on, because you got pepper
No,
sprayed?
I'm
That is so
telling
weak.
you.
That is
That's
so
such a
weak.
good, let me tell you, because what happened to me was when I got pepper sprayed and I went home, and sometimes you have a particle that might be lodged in your eye that's not activated. And
Yeah.
so when I was driving down the road, and I lived in the hood at the time when I was in the academy, this particle like triggered, and my eyes shut,
Oh
like, and
no.
I started watering. I couldn't see, and I end up in the middle median this major street. And I was like, okay, I gotta pull over or something. So I just pulled over, and luckily I had this truck, and I went doot, 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 and I just like stopped the car because I could not see because this
Holy
particle had
cow.
like activated back again. So now I don't know how long later, but they eventually you well, on pepper spray day, or like they do the pepper spray and then they do the whole obstacle course.
Yeah.
And so now you have to have a ride home.
Wow, that's interesting. And
It's not because of me. It must have happened to somebody else.
yeah,
Must have happened
something
before.
whenever there's a new rule, it's because of Joe or
Somebody,
Jane or whoever, that they
yeah.
should name that new rule after them because somewhere somebody had it.
Policy. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Which policy is named after you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
thing about it too is hey kids who are listening right now, milk works better than water if you get
Milk
pepper
does work.
sprayed. Yeah.
Yes.
Milk
Just like
does
when
work.
you ingest it, you drink milk to get that pepper, to calm down.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So, how long were you on the street before they had you start doing undercover work?
So I was at Southwest, and then they were going to open up this new area command called Bolden Area Command, and Bolden was in the middle of the West Side, which was at the time when like Rodney King happened. There was a lot of riots down there, but that was pre me, right? That was like 95, 96,
Yeah,
somewhere around there. And so I wanted to go there. I wanted to go to Bolden. I wanted to go to the West Side. I wanted to open up this new area command that was on Martin Luther King, right across the street from the West Side. Like I was like, I want to start this new place. I want to be in community policing so we can get, buy-in essentially from the people in that area to accept the cops and then to work
right.
with us and create a safer community. So I ended up there. I ended up with working for a guy named John Follis, who was my sergeant. And the day I got off probation, I go, because I was still on probation then when I went to Bolden. And I said, oh, now that I'm off probation, I'd like to try Vice. I think that'd be really interesting. And I knew nothing about prostitution or undercover work. I did some theater in high school. So I thought, okay, it's kind of like acting. I'm
Sure.
just going to act. It'll be fine. So I end up, he's like, oh, I know somebody. And I'm like, great, of course John knows somebody. So he ends up putting in a call. The next week, I'm in the Vice Bay and they're giving me a little briefing about what I'm going to do. And they told me what to wear and they just said, wear, scantily clad. That's what we always used to call it, scantily clad clothing. So something a little risky, short shorts, little tank top or something like that. And I'm going to be working Garces and the Boulevard, which is where Pawn Stars is. Well, Pawn Stars wasn't Pawn Stars
Yeah.
when I started working. They were just a pawn store, and it was owned by the same family. And there was a parking lot to the north of it that was dirt lot. So people would park there, or they park on the other side. And then next to that was this place called Showgirls. And Showgirls was a peep place where the curtain goes up, the girl dances, you put the money in, the curtain goes back down,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
And they sold videos, or you can rent videos or
So
whatever.
like
It's kind of one
adult,
of those
it was like an adult video store kind of
cheesy.
thing and a peep
Yeah.
show.
So
Yeah.
those guys would also park in that parking lot. So
Oh God, I can
so at the
imagine.
briefing, they were like, okay, so this is what you do. It's a sex act for a fee. So you have to get whatever the sex act is, and you have to get kind of a set price or not to exceed or not to be under, whatever. And I said, okay. And they said, okay, you need to walk from A to B. These are, these are all the cops the detectives that you'll see. We'll go out there and we'll show you our cars, so you know what you're looking for, if what's a safe vehicle and whatever. This is the sergeant. Sergeant's going to be your primary responsibility to go back to his car and back every time you get a date. You go back and forth, and so I'm like, okay, and I'm like sitting here going, this sounds really pretty simple, and you don't carry any weapons. We didn't have any weapons at the time. I still kind of had short hair from the academy, not too long, but a little shorter than this,
Yeah.
and which didn't matter. I mean, I'm a hoe. I mean,
Yeah.
it's my mannerisms and stuff. Like
Right.
I could have had a wig on, and I just remember, and they took a Polaroid of me the first day, and I wish I can find it because I swear it's somewhere in my house. I've moved like 20 times, but they took a Polaroid because that's what we used to. used at that time, even to collect evidence.
Sure.
As cops, we just took pictures. So took a Polaroid, and they're like, okay, now we're gonna get out there, and this is the bus signal. If you got the deal, this is what you say or do or whatever. So I was like, okay, this all seems really simple. And I get out there, and I'm walking, and I see this guy. He gets out of his car, and he's kind of like leaning against the car, and he's like gives me the nod, right? Because a lot of this stuff is visual, just to
Sure.
make sure you cool, that kind of thing. Like, because he wants to go, are you a prostitute? No, I mean,
Right.
a couple people have done that, but not like, not really a discreet way of asking, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, I got this guy. I'm gonna walk up. And so I walk up to him, which is off the two to the A to the B. Now I'm walking through this parking lot, and I was like, I don't know if I was supposed to do this, but I can still see my guys, so I feel safe. As long as I see
Yeah.
my guys, they can see me. So I walk up to him, and I'm like, hey, what are you looking for? And he's like, well, I'm looking for some sex. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, how much do you charge? And I said, oh, fuck. They never told me what to charge. Like, I don't know
Oh,
what the going rate is. I've
right.
never been on the strip. I've never seen, I've never, Pretty Woman is about as prostitution. And I'm like 35,000. I don't know. No, because that's how much she got, like 30,000 or 20,000 that
Yeah,
week.
that's
So
something
I,
crazy.
yeah. So I was like, sex. I'm like, 100. And he was like, 100. And I was like, 10? Because I just didn't know,
110.
like, where do I go with this, right? Like, I was like, those mother effers didn't tell me how much. And the guy was like, 10. I'm like, yeah. And then he was like, okay. And I'm like, all right. Like, we were just kind of like, I'm like, okay. So we end up busting him out, and I go back to the sergeant's car, and I was like, dude, you guys didn't tell me how much, like, what's the going rate here? Like, maybe, and it wasn't that they didn't give me a good briefing. It's just maybe I just, and there's kind of like a responsibility on both sides, like what was I to ask? I don't know what I don't know
Well,
until I know.
I mean, I'll stop you now because, that's some really bad undercover training. You should have like a mini school or something. It's like, okay, we're gonna, you're gonna have somebody playing the John, and you're gonna be the hooker, and it's like, okay, what you just said, that's entrapment. That's not gonna fly. Okay, let's
Yeah,
start over here.
right.
There's legalities that you have to cover. There's all kinds of stuff that you have to. It's like, what? It's like, did anybody ever say never go in that guy's car? Never get out of vision
Yeah,
of
they
your
did. They
takedown
said
team.
that.
Okay,
That was for
but
sure.
but
Yeah.
price, that's definitely important. That's but and what we would do, we would do it at district level and we do it at city level. If we knew we were going to be running hose, what we would do is we'd send guys out in UCs and pick up all
Mhm.
the prostitutes that were in that area that we wanted to hit.
Oh yeah.
So we would
Clean it up
cleanse
first.
the area of the
Yeah.
real prostitutes. Then we'd put our female officers in there. So there was no bickering between like a real hoe and my cop hoe. So did you
Yeah.
guys do that?
No, what I will tell you
Wow.
is about that was now the first night we didn't do that, right? There wasn't a lot of it was a big area for prostitution, but it wasn't like so prevalent like it is in other areas. That's why it was
Okay.
nice to kind of put me out there because I won't see
Okay.
and I won't have a lot of walk-ups. But and maybe I want to defend my team too, is like they didn't have a woman on their team. I was
Yeah.
just going up there to do one operation, and they were doing the best that they could because they wanted to start. Day shift had a woman who was doing undercover work. I never got to work with her until later.
Okay.
But so these guys were doing the best of what they knew. I mean, and this was like when I met, eventually went to there as a temporary, they were like, we're going after pimps with you, not just
Ooh.
Johns.
Okay.
So backing up again, like they really did their best for what they knew how to train me. They're like, okay,
Mm,
you do this, you do that, you do,
yeah.
and they really like I never ever felt unsafe. I just didn't know how much to charge. They said don't get
That's
in
so
the
funny.
car. They said
Right.
like the no-no stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like the sex offender van rolls up, don't get in the van. Like don't get too close or they grab up on you
Yep.
and stuff like that. So yeah,
Absolutely.
like it was great. But let me tell you about how amazing Because when I went up there TDY, that cleansing thing is a really good idea. And we did that a couple times. We're like, hey, let's get some of the hose out of the area.
Yep.
But what we ended up, because not to flex, but because you could put me out there and I can put cases on the other hoes that are walking by. Because loitering for the purpose of
You're
prostitution is
right.
another crime.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and so there was a time, and this is even fast forward to when I was a sergeant in Vice. Um, I had brought one girl back to my car and I said, okay, do your report. And I had another sergeant. We had plenty of manpower out there. And I said, I'm going to go out there because this hoe had been out there for at least a good, 30 minutes. And she was loitering in the area of the same where I'm putting my girls at. So I said, let me go put a case on this girl. So I went out there as an undercover and I was really just wearing jeans, like a little tank top, some flip-flops. And I said, let me walk out there. And I was the supervisor. And I
Yeah.
walked out and I made sure everybody was aware of this. And I wanted my team to actually learn and hear what this girl was going to say. She was an old school hoe. Like she was wearing pantyhose, and this
Yeah.
was back in like 2016. So
Wow.
this girl had been around for a while. I mean, she had the hair, she had the dress, she had the pantyhose, and she's walking around. She's going, she's very animated. She had to be at least 50.
Wow.
So I get out there and because she's not leaving the area where we're at,
Yeah.
my girl I felt was a little intimidated by this girl.
Mhm.
So I went out there and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And I have this whole conversation with her that leads to a felony pandering charge
Oh, so she was a
because
pimp, huh?
no, she was telling me the thing about no, she was a hoe.
Okay.
But the definition of pandering is to encourage and entice someone to continue or become a prostitute by
Right.
means of whatever it is, right?
Right.
So that's the definition of pandering. So she sat there and told me all the ways to make me a better prostitute. She went into this whole thing about wearing pants. She's like, girl, you need to wear pantyhose. Those jeans you're wearing aren't going to get you, aren't going to be very accessible to the guy. You got to cut a hole in the pantyhose. And then
Oh.
when you cut a hole in the pantyhose, then you can get on top of the guy. And then I was like, oh, wow. And so I start asking her more questions. I'm like, well, what about cars? Like, do you know about Vice? She goes, oh, yeah, you can't get in this car. And she was describing our Vice cars
Wow.
because she had been picked up so many times, right? She's like, and then there's this Mexican guy who drives this gold car and da da da. And then I was like, wow, okay, what else? And so she's telling me how to become a better or like a safer, better prostitute, right? So that
Wow.
constitutes pandering.
Yeah.
So she went on and which was also another nice thing that she said was she said, there's a Mexican guy out here it was like a green truck. He's out here raping these hoes.
Oh my God.
And he described this guy and I was like, okay, all right, wow, okay, don't get into a green, I'm
I'm
affirming
taking
everything
mental
that
notes.
she's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking notes, which is also just helping her pandering case. Instead of
Right.
a misdemeanor loitering, I'm going to up this to a pandering because she legitimately spelled out everything. And then when I said that she needed to be taken into custody and we took her, she was fucking pissed,
I bet she
pissed
was.
because her little misdemeanor turned in. So I went to the jail specifically and I said, look, I'm arresting you for pandering. She's like, "Ah." She's yelling at me about I was not pandering, da da da. I said, well, you spelled it all out. Like you
Yep.
encourage and entice me to continue to work as a prostitute by all of these things. And she's like, she was pissed. But I was like, F her. Like, if
Right.
you're gonna go out there and continue, I mean, you can call it pimping, but it's pandering. It's pandering. She was pandering me. So we ended up arresting her, and that was a good case because it let my team listen to what she was saying because they don't get to hear that side
Right.
of the calls, of these cases that we have.
Wow. That's very interesting. Damn.
Yeah, F
So
them. They would happen on the strip too. We would do it on the strip. If I can get another girl, like there would be, I remember another time in Bellagio, there was two girls working and hold on. There was two girls working and one of them looks really young. Like I thought she was under 18. And we
yeah.
were at Bellagio, which was a really big, uh, nicer casino.
Sure.
And so I talked to these two girls. Well, the one girl, I was telling them, hey, I got this John. I made up a whole story. I got this John. He's really wanting two girls. up in his room? Do you feel comfortable? Like, clearly we'll make up whatever price you're comfortable with, whatever. Well, the one girl I thought was older was like, F this and kind of walked away. Well, the one younger girl was like, who I thought was under 18, goes, yeah, yeah, I'm down for it. I said, cool. So we go, I introduced her to a vice detective. I said, oh, hey, here, I found us another girl. And what's nice is when you become such a cohesive team, you just go with it. And
Sure,
these
sure.
guys went with it. And they were like, oh, yeah, yeah, this is a girl. Okay, cool. Too. I said, yeah, she's willing to do this. You have to pay me and her. So I'm setting up the story. And he's like, okay, I get it. Like the light bulb
Yeah,
goes off very quickly. We end up taking her and me into custody. So we
nice.
make the double arrest. And then now we have us in the a conference room in the back of Bellagio trying to figure out if this girl was over 18 or not.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So a very good UC is thinking, what else, what other crimes do I have out there? What
Yeah,
other
you're
things am
you're
I looking
calling an
for?
audible at the line, it's like absolutely. But that's thinking on your
Yeah.
feet, and that's training, that's experience. You know,
hmm
now, did you think you were ready for this kind of work when you started doing it?
Um, did I think I was ready? Like ready in the less amount of time I was in patrol and then quickly went into an undercover
Yes,
unit?
because
Yeah, so that does I get asked that a lot.
because what I have seen through the years is you would have a good-looking female that's young, and Vice would be just chomping at the bit because they're like, she's perfect for undercover work. She
Yeah.
would spend her career more or less in Vice, and then if she wanted to promote, or they just got rid of that, whole, shooting match, they're kind of left out in the cold, and they have zero clue on how to be a cop. They
Yeah.
knew the Vice stuff upside down and all around, like the back of their hand. But you put them in another scenario that police have to take care of, and
Mhm.
they were worse than some kid on field training. They were horrible.
Yeah, no, I totally see what you're talking about and that I've seen a couple women in my career that happen to, and then they end up in like if Vice or an undercover unit isn't working out for them anymore, they end up at the academy, end
Right.
up in recruiting, like
Yeah.
something where they don't go back to patrol. I have seen that. And what I think was how I look at it was like I loved patrol.
Sure.
And patrol still was like even when I went back as a sergeant, patrol was like one of my favorites. It was everything was going on every day. I don't feel like I pigeonholed myself. I don't feel like I lost this skill and gained this other skill because undercover work is much different than patrol. The operations, the mindset, all this other stuff. So when I tested to go there permanently in '04. I wasn't eligible. And I think it was an oversight that
Okay.
they didn't see that I was eligible to test at the time. It may have been an oversight or it may have just been like they didn't know and they just accepted me because they wanted me up there anyways.
Yep.
So I ended up testing and I think I got like number 4 on the list. And the two people behind me were good friends of mine, but knew I worked my butt off during that 3-month TDY.
What's TDY?
They never
Defense.
temporary duty
Oh, okay.
something. I don't know what the Y stands for. Somebody TDY, temporary duty something. Um, but you'd think it'd be TDA
Yeah,
assignment, but
that would make more sense, but
it's always been
okay.
TDY.
Why not?
Yeah, acronyms, cops and their acronyms.
Oh, Lord,
So
yes.
yeah, so I wasn't eligible, but the two guys behind me who could have appealed it and are still my friends to this day. And they
Sure.
knew how hard I worked. They never said anything. Nobody else behind me either said anything. And so I ended up there, and I think I was the only girl on the list as well. So, yeah, I got up there and nobody complained. The other two behind me came up as well, and I never felt like, oh, I didn't do enough. And I've never gotten that from anybody, like, oh, you
Okay.
didn't do enough patrol time. Like, maybe because I didn't go up there and I wasn't a one-trick pony. I wasn't just doing Johns and reversals. I was doing pimps, which is the guys can't do that.
Right.
And then I was also the girlfriend of some of these Vice detectives, and we'd go out and pick up girls. I mean, we're in Vice, I mean, on a daily basis, I mean, minimum arrest is 10. I mean, you have a bad night if you have under 10, and that's off the streets and the hotels. And there'd be times
Right.
where at one point, we had 36 in um, on one night, making arrests because it's so prevalent out here. So, I mean, I think I proved myself really early on that I could at least do the vice job, but also do the guy's job because that's different. Like when you were talking about the girl, that's typical story about a girl going up there and she's cute. That's a very typical enrollment with finding a new girl to bring up to Vice.
Yep.
And yeah, everybody wants to bang her or whatever the deal is, and they thought she'd look cute in a skirt and whatever. Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yep.
And I've also had bad experiences where they go up there and they get not Metro Vice. I've never heard that, but from other units is other jurisdictions, I should say, that they go up there and they get grossly hit on, maybe inappropriately touched by the other
Yep.
detectives, and those kind of things. And I'm like, and I get asked advice all the time, Jen, this happened. What should I do? Well, if you say something, you're never going to be used again because you're a snitch and not fun, not, part of the team if you decide to tell on them. Or you can just walk away and say, you know what, this isn't the time for me to go to that unit,
Right.
and then avoid all that other stuff, IA and whatever. So it's
Well,
up to you what you want to do.
hindsight's 2020, but looking back at your career, do you think you should, because how long were you on the street and patrol before you went UC doing vice stuff?
It was '02 to '04, so
Oh, 2 years.
2 years.
That's not a
Yeah.
lot of time.
Mhm.
I think, and this is just me, it takes a good
Yeah.
4 or 5 years to really learn the job on the street. It takes,
Yeah.
it's like before, this radio comes over, the call comes over the radio and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that. Oh yeah, no problem. You know
Yeah.
what it's like when you were newer, you're like, never had that one. This should be interesting.
Yeah.
It's like where you're that confident. And I think that
Yeah.
just makes you a better, more well-rounded cop. I think every cop should be doing UC work. I think they should be in investigations. I think they should be doing the gambit because it just makes you a more well-rounded cop. I know that's pie in the sky. Maybe that's just wishful thinking, but I really think that. And for supervisors, same thing. If you're a sergeant, it's like we had guys that, say you're on the tax squad, that's our version of the SWAT team. And it's
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, it's like you become a sergeant, they'll send you to a district. But we've had some that just stayed as, like in SWAT or like say the detective bureau or whatever. And then, the political winds blow a certain way and you're no longer that guy or that gal and you get thrown out just to a regular district and you're clueless. You don't know how to be a boss. You don't know how, so
Yeah.
I think what you did was great, but do you think maybe you should have had more time on the street first, or did it matter?
Honestly, I don't think so. Me personally, I don't think
Okay.
so. There's some women that I've brought up to do temporary assignments, that I was like, oh, this kid's not mature, doesn't have the
Right.
right police smarts, right? Because you do have to have like articulation of
Oh yeah.
law, right?
Yes.
Like pandering. Do you think that pandering, me going out, thinking outside the box, okay, I'm not gonna be in this little soliciting mind. I'm going to get this chick for pandering. So because I understand the law and I understand what needs to be said, the probable cause to get it, right? So
Right.
what I sometimes I think it really depends on the person
Mm.
because and it's really 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 case by case because I feel like one, if you want to be a UC, which I ended up doing infiltration cases with ATF, I ended up doing cases with IRS, FBI, DEA. So I end up doing these deep undercover cases. Well, the more that I'm out there, remember your girl with the being on the billboard and doing all these other things. Well, now she's out there, right? And especially now with media.
Oh sure.
Man, you could be out there in a heartbeat. Like you could just be out there doing, some kind of car stop and someone posts you on, and now you're the cop
Yeah.
that was on, the
Right.
boulevards. So how I look at it is that I didn't. wasn't a matter of decopping me, right? Because I'd only been a cop for
Right.
2 years. So I didn't have the same mannerisms. I didn't stand, with bladed at people
Yeah,
all the
sure,
time.
sure.
I didn't have a lot of those mannerisms that probably you get, or most likely you get the longer you are a police officer, right? And maybe this being cynical, maybe judgmental, like I went and I didn't have any of that when I went to the undercover world. So I think that in my situation it was perfect for me, of course, because it came out the way that it should have
Yeah,
for 25 years. But I could see when I brought some other girls up, they weren't ready. They weren't ready mature wise, they
gotcha.
weren't ready uh, and the reality is, I'll tell you the reality of undercover work is, and true undercover work, like doing reversals, buying dope, and all that stuff, is if you look at it, I believe 1% of the police department can pull it off. I've taught 40 women in a room, and I've done this a couple times where I've taught a large group of women and about 40 a couple times. So I know it's not just one case study that I
Yeah.
did, but a couple times. So I had 40 girls in a room. And what I teach all the time, and I started the training program with Vice, with Metro about starting this undercover program. So before we even use you, you have to go through this week of training. So the
Which
first
makes total sense to
day,
me. That's a good
now
thing.
it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that's a
So
good thing.
we can
Yes.
avoid we can avoid some of the things that, we talked about.
Right.
So the first training that I teach is basic covert operations. It's taking the uniform off. Now you're in plain clothes and surveillance and you're doing all this stuff. Well, if I do that out of this 40, I'm going to lose about half the women in the room because they're like, oh my God, you're taking all my tools away. I'm going to feel unsafe, or
Right.
maybe this isn't for me. And we talk about that stuff. Then we talk about vice operations and we talk about the pimp prostitution subculture and we talk about how pimps navigate through the prostitution world, and we talk about prostitutes and how they work. And then we talk about prostitution reversals and the activity that goes on in Vice. I'm going to lose another half of that.
Sure.
So I'm already down to 10. Now I talk about dope and I talk about even firearms. I mean, we talk about a little bit, but what I'm really wanting is just weed out who this is not for. And some people will decide patrol's the way I want to go, or robbery or burglary or wherever.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to be in a covert unit. I want to do investigations, but I don't want to be the undercover. So out of that 40, and this has happened twice and probably more over the years, I will get three out of that room who will say, yes, I will sign up and do a reversal. Because reversals are like 101 of undercover work. If you can do that, because they're so quick. They're like, I mean, they could be a 1 minute conversation and you get an arrest.
Explain what a reversal is.
A reversal is when I'm working as the undercover prostitute and my target is John's or Tricks or the prostitution client. So very, very basic undercover work because it's very fast. It's not long term. It's a very big turnover. So you get the arrest, you go back out, and you're back out again, and you're playing again. So if I have that 40, I'm now down to three. Three will sign up, one will work out.
Wow.
That's just the reality of it
Yeah.
because of the job, right? You're talking about sex. You don't have generally you don't have weapons on you.
Right.
If you do,
Absolutely.
you might have something. I mean, at one point I had brass knuckles, a rock, a pen, something like that. Occasionally I had a gun. But occasionally, right? So these girls are just like, nope, I don't feel safe. And then these three girls that do it, one girl will be like, I love this, and that's just the reality.
Yeah.
And if I think about it in the way that I've talked to with some of my ATF friends, who ATF to me is the epitome of undercover work, like a Jay Dobbins or a Lou Velosi, like
Yeah,
those
I
guys.
interviewed Jay. Yeah, amazing story.
Yeah, they would probably tell you the same thing, that everybody wants to be an undercover until you do undercover shit.
Sure.
And then it's not what they think
Well,
it
it's
is.
just
It's not
like,
what they think
I want to be a cop. I watch TV and it looks really cool. Then
of
you
it. Yeah.
actually do it and you're like, okay, this is nothing like I thought it was going to be. But there's a percentage of
Yeah.
people that are like, yeah, I can't get enough of this shit. I'd do it for free if they let me, this is awesome.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
same thing with UC stuff, it's like, you're running, again, you're running hose, you're doing this operation, you're doing that operation. Yeah, the shine comes off the penny really fast. All of a sudden you're like, yeah, this is like work. This isn't playtime like I thought it might be or whatever. This is real.
Yeah.
And there's real
Yeah.
danger and it's icky and it's depressing. And speaking of depressing, where do these prostitutes come from?
Well, in Vegas, they kind of come from all over, but the reality is, all over the country, they come to Vegas, right? Because
Yeah.
Vegas is has the supply and demand here is insane, right?
Hmm.
Really, the demand here is really insane. A lot of people come here and they think it's legal. So they come here and they think, I mean, it's everywhere. It's in the hotels and nightclubs, the streets. There's everything you can think of is here. If you want a trans prostitute, we have an area for that. If you want men that look like men, but they do gay prostitution stuff, but they're straight, we have an area for that.
Yeah.
So it's anything you can find here, even when they had Craigslist was huge when I was in there. Even just basic, like on these dating sites, you can find a prostitute easy
Wow.
in Las Vegas. So the demand here now where the psychology and the sociology that comes from these girls, their backgrounds and their upbringings, a lot of them come from foster homes, a lot of them comes from broken homes. There we have many girls here who grew up in gang infested areas that have then, we call it choose up with a pimp that was
Okay.
also a gangster, and then they end up traveling around the country. And if you have something like the Super Bowl, oh man, or we had NBA All-Star Week. They just come and they work what's called like a circus or circuit. It is a circuit. A
It is a circus.
circuit. It
Okay.
is a circuit. So the circuit, and then so they'll come. So like big events like SEMA, um, CES, like those big conventions that we have here,
Yeah.
they're gonna come here because they're gonna know there's a big influx of people, especially like big sporting events. You're gonna have an influx of prostitution and an influx of other crimes related to prostitution.
So supply
So
and
a lot of
demand.
these girls,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the supply and demand, but you also the when you look at the girls themselves, like I said, foster care, broken homes, their parents might have been prostitutes or pimps, so they're just going with what they know,
Yeah.
right? The gangster, there was back in the mid 90s, there was a huge shift in who were pimps. And back, you had the OG pimps, right? With the gaiters and the hat and the
Yeah.
feather and all that stuff, right? Those guys still exist, but what happened in the 90s is gangsters, like gangbangers, the ones who are robbing and stealing and, acting like gangsters, started looking at these old school pimps and it's like, wow, they're making all this money, yet they're not going to jail. They're not catching cases for what they're doing. So
Yeah.
what they were doing was slinging girls, right? And girls in this environment in the prostitution life are very bad victims. They don't want to be a victim. They don't want to snitch. They don't want to turn on them because there has been a breakdown of their self-esteem, breakdown to bring them back up. I don't know if you remember
Mhm.
that in the police academy that I
Oh
was
yes,
telling you
yes,
about, a
exactly.
breakdown to bring you back up and get you fully immersed in what you're doing, that it's okay to have sex, it's okay to steal from a trick. You're having sex, you might as well charge for it. It's okay to drug them because then if you drug them, you don't have to fuck them. You can just steal all their shit and then run away and go give it to daddy, and daddy gets the tricks, Rolex watch, his money, his World Series of Poker bracelet, any other value rings,
Right.
valuables, and
And
things
and
like
that
that.
John isn't
So
gonna call the cops. He's embarrassed that he got duped like that.
very few call the cops because what happens in Vegas will go to court 30 days later.
Right. And
So
yeah, exactly.
if we catch
Yeah.
them, and that's the thing. I had one guy out here who he got trick rolled. We call it trick rolled when a prostitute steals your property. Well, he had drug induced trick roll. So
Okay.
he was drugged. She ends up, these guys, man, they really need to, I don't know if it's about teaching them how to do it right or just telling them not to pick up a prostitute. But so a lot of these guys go into the room and then they put their stuff in the safe. Well, a
Yeah.
girl can turn her phone like this, watch from the corner, watch him put the numbers in the safe.
Oh,
He's
okay.
not drunk. He's drunk.
Yeah.
She's straight because that's the other misconception is that all these girls are on drugs and drinking. They are not. They have to stay straight because if you don't stay straight, you can't make your money. So you're
Yeah.
not going to be impaired while you're with this John, right? The John's drunk. You look, you see him putting in his number. He puts in freaking, this guy put in 80, no, he had 120,000 in cash. He had an $80,000 watch he put in the safe, right? So
Oh
he
God.
passes out. He passes out. She takes the stuff. Um, so he's on this mission. He's like, she wasn't a prostitute. And I was like, bro, she was a prostitute.
Yeah.
You're not that cute. She was a gorgeous little girl
Yeah.
with, beautiful girl who's here on a real estate convention. Like, are you really buying that? That this
Right.
was like, this is a scenario for you. And so the guy was like, I'm staying here for another week because I'm going to find this girl. And I
Oh,
was like, well,
whatever.
good luck. It's going to
Yeah.
be like a needle in a haystack or even
Right.
worse, right? So this girl ended up, I got his case, and because when I was pregnant, actually in Vice, I ended up moving to the trick roll team because then I can just do investigations. I wasn't in
Right.
harm's way, so I ended up being on the trick roll team. So this guy, I had him for a week, man. Every day we were just like, he's like, "Have you found her yet?" And he's like, "I've looked at this hotel," and he was switching hotels trying to find, like, really just
Was he on the strip, I
manically.
imagine, or was he downtown?
Yeah, he was at Mirage is where it
Okay.
happened. He ended up moving to another place and another place trying to look for this girl.
Yeah.
And no crap, does this girl end up doing the same thing? She ends up stealing a guy's watch. The guy didn't get doped up all the way, but she ends up running out of the Palms Hotel with another guy's watch. And luckily the Palms was on top of it. They stop her.
Yeah.
They take her into custody. I go, oh my God, this is this guy's girl. And we track back down all these other things. She had
Yeah.
been arrested before. He just, it's you give me a description of a pretty, mixed Asian white girl, like fuck, that could be a million of our prostitutes. But Vice is really good. Vice detectives are really good because if I show them a picture, some of them will be like, oh, that's so and so
Oh, wow. Okay.
who drives such and such, right? Because we deal with the same girls all the time. I mean, it's a lot
Right.
of girls, but we deal with the same girls. So this girl ended up having a pimp who had this like Lamborghini. I mean, black guy Lamborghini. She was a moneymaker who was 16 years old
Oh God, 16.
and who had been arrested as an adult because she another cop, and it wasn't a vice cop, ended up arresting her. And when you get arrested as a juvenile and you have no record, but they don't know you're a juvenile or whatever, and they just assume you're an adult, they
Mm,
take you to Clark County Detention Center where the adults are booked into, and then now you've established an adult identity
sure, sure,
by
sure.
what you give them,
Yeah.
right? So this girl had been arrested. She had been bailed out at one point. I tracked the video camera all the way to the bail bondsman, saw who the pimp was, and then, didn't get his watch back. That dude actually bought another watch while he was in Vegas, his $80,000 Breitling, and bought another watch because he, had to have the stuff, but he was going to go after her. And I was like, and that guy was I'm not from Vegas, but he had been in Vegas in the 80s doing nightclubs and
So
stuff. And
he
I was
should
like,
have
you
known
don't
better.
understand.
Yeah, he should
Yeah,
have
you
known
should have
better.
known better, dude. You're not
So
that cute.
how many, yeah, how many of these prostitutes are hooked on heroin, crack, etc.?
Yeah, hardly any on the
See, that's
strip.
completely different from where I
Yeah.
worked. 99%, well, 90 probably. Where when I first started, it was crack cocaine. It was $5 BJs for a rock, or
Wow. Yeah.
whatever. And it was not Pretty Woman. It was Pretty Scary Woman, really. It was nothing like TV. And these white guys from the suburbs would come down, for these hoes. And I'm like, and of course, we'd stop and like, and now you're gonna go home and you were just with this woman, you weren't wearing a condom, even if you were, you're gonna bring that home
Yeah.
to your wife? That's
Yeah.
disgusting. Oh
That's the
my
true
God.
victims of this, right? Is the families
Oh,
because we had one guy out here who, I'll go back to the drug thing in a minute, but we had a guy out here who, well, I should start with the hoe. The hoe out here had drugged five guys,
wow.
and they would wake up and realize all their shit was gone. Well, the sixth guy died. because he
Ooh.
overdosed. She put too much into it
Ah,
and killed him,
what
right?
was she using? What was she using to drug
I'm
this guy?
not sure. I'm
Okay,
not sure what it was. I just
interesting.
know that guy died, which then she ends up getting prosecuted for
That's a homicide. Yeah.
all six of them, right? Yeah, for that. So that happened. So now going back to the drugs. Now we have our crack areas where you
Okay.
can get. I wouldn't say inflation has happened. So it's probably a $20 blowjob now.
Yeah.
So you're $5.
Yeah, this was the
But
90s, so yeah, it was $5
yeah,
back then.
so
Yeah.
this has gone up a little bit. So when I was telling you about the gangsters and the old school pimps, right? And they're prostitutes and they're working the strip, which the strip encompasses the Sahara Hotel, which is down the far north end, and then it goes all the way to like Mandalay Bay.
Yeah.
So these girls are carpet hoes. We call them carpet hoes, which means they work the carpet, which means they work the hotels and the casinos.
Okay.
So these girls, you have to play a part. You can't be cracked out in the middle of a casino.
Right.
They'll kick you out being homeless or being all drugged out and whatever. You're gonna cause attention. Well, also, if I remind you about being straight in the mind. If you're not
Yeah.
straight in the mind, you're fucking with the pimp's money. So
Ah,
pimps aren't gonna get like encourage any of that kind of shit. Maybe you're drinking off duty, maybe you're doing some weed off duty or something, but getting into the harder stuff is not gonna usually happen in that subculture because they don't want you strung out. Plus, when you become strung out, your looks start to go. Well, so what ends up happening is this circle of life, which when you get older, like I can tell you, there's hardly ever, when I was in Vice both times, as a detective and as a sergeant, that I would ever find a prostitute working the casino over 40.
okay.
You just wouldn't find them, right?
Right.
So what I ended up looking at was where are the over 40 hoes, right? Or did they retire? Like where did they go,
Yeah,
right?
there's no
So
401k, I don't think, for that. Yeah.
yeah, they don't
Okay.
only collect Social
Yeah.
Security and then, they're living in Florida. But so what I did see was the circle of prostitution of how it goes, right? So
Yeah.
you're young, you're beautiful, you have a pimp, you're going through this whole life of being a prostitute. You're making all that money, you're doing great, and then age does start to the game wears on you. I mean,
I would
you're living in
imagine.
this very
Yes.
fearful life, right? You're getting fucked with by the pimps, you're getting by other pimps, you're getting fucked with by your own pimp, you're getting fucked with the cops, you're getting fucked with by Johns. Like, because we've had Johns kill prostitutes, we've had them beat them up, we've had them, sexually assault them when they said no to something, they do it
Sure.
anyways. So you have all these things. So that is a mind fuck. So your body does start to wear, and the game you age fast. The game starts wearing on you. Now you start self-medicating
Okay.
to numb out. That's where you start getting into the heroin, the crack, the cocaine, whatever it is. And alcohol.
Sure.
You start wearing out. Now the pimp goes, get the fuck out of my stable, and you're done. Well, now you're hooked on drugs. Now you
Yeah.
end up downtown around other areas, Boulder Highway. There's some still on Tropicana. We have several tracks out here, and that's where they end up. And if you look back at some of these girls, if I let's say there's a heroin prostitute, she catches a case at Tropicana, I can run her in, I mean, years and
You see the
years ago.
progression of what she went through. Now, do
Yeah, the
most
progression and yeah.
are any of these girls independent? Or
We like to say that a renegade hoe is a dead hoe.
really?
Renegade is a term that they use in the pimp prostitution subculture to describe a girl that works independent, is a renegade. So in my mind, I would hope 5% maybe on the strip are renegades.
Wow.
Um, but the game is too strong out here, and you have pimps, and that's why when they put me out when I was first up there, they said we're gonna put you out there as a prostitute, but your target is to get pimps.
Right.
So as I walk down the strip, I would get one of these guys that comes up and go, "Hey girl, are you working?" And one of the big rules in the pimp prostitution subculture is you don't look another black guy in his face, into his eyes. So if I were a real prostitute that had my own pimp,
Yeah.
and I saw another black guy come up towards me, I just put my head down and I keep walking. That's the rules.
Oh, okay.
So me being independent prostitute, I've just learned how to do it. I need some money for this.
I'm
I
here
want a
from
new car.
Iowa and I need money for
Yeah,
this
yeah, I'm here from
operation.
Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So I play, that I need support in this
Yeah.
endeavor that I did, right? So I look at them and initially I may treat them as a trick.
Okay.
And 99.99%, there'll be one that kind of plays along maybe for a little bit, but 99.9999% of that person that comes up to me and asks me if I'm working will then turn it into a pandering conversation because he'll go, I
Okay.
ain't no trick. He'll be insulted by that if I
Oh, okay.
started playing him as a trick.
Interesting. Because
So then they'll start, yeah.
I've got a little story. A good buddy of mine, he was in Vegas for a convention of some type, and there was a gal walking down the strip, and one of his buddies was there, and his buddy comes back and tells him, he says, "You'll never guess what happened." He says, "What?" He said, "I'm walking down the strip. There's a girl wearing a Marquette. Now that's a Jesuit college in Milwaukee,
Mhm.
and these are all Milwaukee area people." And he's like, and the girl's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he says, "Oh, okay." So they start talking, and she's like college age, wearing a Marquette T-shirt. She's oh, he's like, "My daughter goes to Marquette. What a small world, blah blah blah." And she's like, "You looking for a date?" And he didn't understand. He says, "Well, I could be your father. What are you talking about?" And she's like, "No, a date." And he didn't like it didn't. Uh, this is Clark. It didn't register with him at first, and then all of a sudden, it's like he just started talking to her, and she's like, "Yeah, this is how I work my way through Marquette. I
Mhm.
prostitute in the summer, and then I go to school, in the spring and the spring and the fall." And I'm like,
Yeah,
and he's like, "I wonder if that's real." And
yeah. It is real, but
wow,
real and far between.
yeah,
It's few
yeah,
and far between.
I would think
Yeah.
so. But what
I mean,
shocked me,
we got a girl one time. She was like, I'm not a real prostitute. I just came here for the weekend. I'm a school teacher trying to get money. And we're like, yeah, but you're with a bunch of known hoes that we know. Like,
wow,
so, and she could have just joined up with them and that's
yeah,
where it was going that night. But, she caught a case anyways. I mean, you can't, it's still illegal no matter
right.
what you're paying for.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, did you ever delve into the world of like real high price prostitution where, like the $1,000 an hour or
Oh,
more?
yeah. Oh yeah, we call it in pocket when we engage in the conversation with these girls. Like we would be in pocket with these girls that there was a girl that we had that was she was beautiful, Asian girl, and we met her at Venetian and it's me and my male partner and we're talking
Yeah.
to her and she's going on and I'm just like, "Oh my God, you look really expensive." Like really like you make a lot of money. And she goes, oh yeah. I said, well, what, I'm sure we can't afford you, but what's the most you've ever made?
Yeah.
And she said 10,000 in one night.
Oh,
And I believe her
jeez.
because the story that she told, like she told it with authenticity and really was like serious. And I was like, yeah, I believe that she did that. And the stuff that she did for that, I was like, you deserved every dollar of that
Uh,
money.
did you ever read the book Fast Girl, Susie Favor Hamilton?
Mm-mm,
Read
no.
it. It is so hilarious. She was one of the most high paid prostitutes in Las Vegas. She had a
Hmm.
condo on the top of Trump Tower. She was getting $10,000 an hour. She was an Olympic athlete. She was a runner, and
Wow.
she fell. And she said that she twisted her ankle or whatever. She took a dive because she knew she was going to lose.
Uh-huh.
So she did that in two different competitions, and she was married, had kids in Madison, Wisconsin. She was Susie Homemaker, and she led this double life of the high-priced hoe in Vegas.
Hmm.
And she
Wow.
blames being she, she was blaming it all on, I mean, she was making a ton of money. And even her
Hmm.
husband didn't know. I'm like, yeah, right, my ass.
Yeah,
But
okay.
yeah, exactly. But she's making all this money, blah blah blah. She was living the high life. She's getting all these expensive gifts from all these, she had high priced Johns.
Yeah,
And
regulars probably. Yeah.
exactly. So I don't know if it's still out there. It's called Snoops. It was like a
Oh yeah.
website or whatever. And the guy who was the head of Snoops calls her and he says, "Hey, I'm going to be running a story on you on Monday about how you're a prostitute in Vegas. Do you want to meet?
Hmm.
This is like Thursday. He says, I want to give you a heads up so you can tell your family before they see it on the interwebs. And
Yeah.
she's like, well, you're full of shit, blah. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it. So she meets with him and she's like, yeah, oh boy, my world's going to come crashing. So she turned it around and said, well, it's mental health situation. I was misdiagnosed. I'm this, I'm that. But she only like came to these revelations after she was busted, after the cash train stopped.
Yeah.
I'm like, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm a victim. I'm this, I'm that. While you're wearing, you have the Coach purse and the Rolex hanging on your wrist that all these Johns have given you. So
Mm.
that's an interesting book. I would highly suggest that. But she wound up on Oprah and all these women are like, oh, this poor girl. And I'm like, yeah, okay,
Mm.
whatever. So
Yeah,
be it.
there is a point where you like I can have some empathy for them because like I teach a little brief section in the pimp prostitution subculture about the African American female and especially in like the hoods, the gang infested area because it's like they get manipulated so bad and they are treated like second, third, fifth class citizens,
Oh,
whatever you want to call
absolutely.
it, that in this subculture because like for instance, the name that they're commonly called are duck. So if you say like I'm driving down the street looking for a prostitute, me and my team, and I'll say, if I have a black prostitute there, I'll say, oh, I got a duck right here on the corner of DI and the Boulder Highway. Now, that's a derogatory term. If I remember working that area as a sergeant,
Yeah.
and I rolled down my window one time and I started quacking at this black prostitute that was on the side of the road, and she went off on me. Started fuck you, da da,
Yeah,
da,"
yeah.
like went off because I was like, it's a derogatory term. It's one of those things that I mean, you can call them a bitch all day, like bitch this, bitch that, you bitch da da da. That's nothing compared to calling them a duck, because the opposite, which they call white girls are valued so much more, and they're called swans. So you
Oh.
have like this dynamic in that subculture where they really don't value black females and they overvalue or they value so much more a white girl and they just get used and abused and discarded and just not treated even fairly. I mean, what's fair in that subculture anyways, but
Right.
they really it's a very overlooked part of society when you come to human trafficking and you start looking at really the dynamics and how many females are African American, how many are white, and really, in my opinion, the focus for these nonprofits and victim advocacies and stuff like that should really look at empowering the African American female so they don't end up just doing what everything else is going on in their neighborhood, their
Right.
poor neighborhood. Get them out, get them empowered, get them to see that there's so much more than just going with the flow and becoming a prostitute and doing all these other things.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say human trafficking, working with the FBI, et cetera. I would think that would be a big thing there, is it?
It is. It's big, especially when you had girls crossing state lines, when you had
Right.
big pimps that had a lot of money. Because if you really want to get a pimp, you get him for money laundering. If he's
Mm.
really hiding his money everywhere
Yeah,
and
it's a cash
creating
business.
businesses,
Yeah.
whatever.
That,
Yeah, creating businesses or putting stuff in other people's names to avoid,
okay. Sure.
all that other stuff. Yeah, that's big. They'll put it in one of their hoes' names, they'll put it in their mom's names. Like a lot of their property and stuff is not generally owned by them because they don't want it taken
Ah,
away because you could say it's not mine, it's my mom's
interesting.
or
Well, let's
whatever.
switch
Yeah.
gears a little bit here. How did working all this undercover stuff with, it's depressing, more than anything else. I think you see another side of society that most people don't see. And it's just like you said, you start hearing, these girls are coming from foster homes, they're coming from broken families. It's not a great life. It's pretty freaking horrible. How did this affect you personally?
Um, I think as far as like this the sad part of this job, I think at one point I was just kind of calloused about it.
Right.
Like I didn't, it really didn't bother me, like in the sense of like I didn't felt like it was bothered because yeah, I saw some bad stuff. I saw dad prostitute his daughter and then want me to have sex with both of them. Like I was like, this is some fucked up shit.
Yep.
Like it was just stuff I just didn't, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with society or humanity, right? That they would allow this stuff, that people operate like this and don't see the problem. But I don't think I've seen a lot of guys, males, become very cynical and very like they treat women like all prostitutes. Like they treat all women like all prostitutes, like a
Yeah.
suspect. Like that whole seeing women in a different light really bugs a lot of the male officers. Me, I just kind of like I don't know, I just didn't feel like it hurt me in the sense of like even I don't know, I thought there was always something wrong with me that I didn't feel really sad or like, oh, this is really horrible. Because I would go back and do undercover tomorrow
Right.
as a prostitute because I'd be getting those bad guys. I'd be getting those girls off the street, and I would have empathy even for the pimps because I mean, they don't know what they don't know until they know. And if you grew up in that environment and that's all you know, that's what you know. If you knew better, you would do better, right? Like that's the way I
Okay.
think. And I think that about a lot of things in life. And so I grew to have a lot more empathy and not sympathy, I
Okay.
think. And so yeah, I don't think it's not that that particular parts of the job affected me. It was the dedication that I had to the job that affected my off-duty life.
Yeah.
That's what really I worked, man.
What did you do to like separate your UC persona or your police persona from like your true self? You got a life outside of work, or maybe you don't. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
Yeah. Well, there was times when I was working deep undercover cases where I would see my kids from 8 in the morning till 8:45 in the morning. And then maybe on some weekends, I would see them, throughout the weekend, or some days I would, I hardly took days off. I didn't realize I was losing time by not selling it back every year. I didn't know that was a thing until
wow.
2015. Then I realized, and that was 15 years in, and I realized,
Yeah.
oh crap, like I would go on vacations, whatever, but I would usually go on my weekends but to the beach or wherever. But I really didn't go anywhere. I didn't go out of the country hardly ever because I worked and I worked to the detriment of my family and my friends and relationships that I have and all that stuff. And
Right.
so I was like, I always joke about, I would say, no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you bust your butt, no matter how many arrests you do, the department's never going to put a statue of you in front of
No,
headquarters.
they will not. And
Great.
it's
Yeah.
and what have you done for me lately is really, the key word is like, hey, look, I've done all this stuff in the past, blah blah blah. And it's like, oh, that's nice. What did you do
Yeah,
today?
you're
Good for
replaced
you.
by somebody cheaper, right?
Oh,
That's what I thought.
absolutely.
I was working, and I worked for myself. Like I worked because my drive and my the game of it, right? It's the whole
Right.
undercover work is a game, and it's how I wanted to play and how I wanted to win the game with every perp, every suspect that I came into contact with.
So working in Vegas, for as long as you did, you must have come across some celebrities or, some famous people. Any good stories, regarding that?
I wish I had an undercover story about me,
It doesn't have to be
being a
undercover. It
prostitute.
doesn't
I
have.
know. I wish I did though, because some people I know like have like, some great stories. I mean, but Vegas is so amazing because we ended up becoming like a show capital, right? Like
Right.
everybody comes here to do a residency, everybody comes here to do a concert,
Yep.
sporting event, like all this stuff,
Right.
right? So my most favorite celebrity story is Britney Spears.
Okay.
And
Oh
I was
God, she's a
working,
train wreck. Oh my Lord.
but this is probably what started her train wreckedness. So I was working in uniform. I was working her concert when she was big with the snake and the green
Yeah.
outfit. It was like on her thing, and she was with Justin Timberlake. And I remember my boss goes, "Hey, Jen, I need you to go backstage and go to Britney Spears. You're gonna post up at her door. She just got here. You and another guy are going to be post up there, and then you'll eventually walk her to the stage, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's cool. I wasn't really like a big Britney fan, I thought her music was okay, but I went back there and I can hear her in the back, like warming up her voice, right? Doing
Yeah.
whatever, right? In front of me, like this scene is like in front of me is Justin Timberlake and then Britney Spears choreographer. And they're like from here to like, yeah, they're probably like 3 feet in front of me because it's a small
Wow.
hallway.
Yeah.
And I'm just like this, and and this is right before Justin broke off and became, his independent singer. So him and the choreographer, they're like, oh yeah, and then you should do this, and then you should do this. And I'm like, oh my
Eh,
God, this
this
is
is so
totally
cool. Yeah.
cool. I got Brittany behind me. I got Justin in front of me. And then I got this guy, the choreographer. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And they're just like doing all this stuff. And I'm like, is it kosher for me to like pull out my my notebook and have him autograph
Yeah,
it? And I
exactly.
don't know why. I wasn't into them that much, but I thought, oh my God, I'm so close. Like this is like crazy that my job lets me
Yeah.
do this now. And so she eventually comes out and she's like 4 foot something, but she has these heels on. And so she's about my height now. She walks out, they hug and, have a concert, all that stuff, and they leave. And then they said, okay, you go back to the front. So I got to watch the whole concert.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was like, I kind of became a Britney fan at that point because she
Yeah.
really was a good entertainer at the time. And then like I don't know if it was like a couple weeks later, the drama comes out that allegedly the choreographer was having an affair with Britney while Justin and her were together. And then I'm like, oh my God, I just saw this whole thing play out in this hallway. Like I'm like, oh my God. And they pretended they were friends. Like just silliness.
That's awesome. I love that. That's really
Yeah.
cool. So
That was probably one of my
what
favorite.
advice would you give yourself as a new cop? Knowing what you know now, what what advice would you give yourself?
If I was to do it all over again, and the advice that I would give was one, and I tell this to all my women when I teach them, is find a ground fighting skill that you enjoy. Jujitsu, whatever. Like really, and I'm saying this for myself too,
Yeah.
because yeah, I had some scary moments. I didn't go, fist to face with anybody. We had some struggles and some, resisting and stuff like that, but I never got into a full-on like drag out fight, luckily in my whole career.
Yeah.
But I tell these girls, stay in shape and do some kind of ground fighting because you got to keep yourself alive for a little bit until the cavalry comes. That's one of my biggest things. Two, I would tell myself to take those days off and take those vacations while I'm young without kids. Go to Europe for a week. Don't think that you owe your life and your body and your time to this job.
Right.
Like take the time for yourself. Self-care is probably one of those things I neglected for years. Those
Okay.
are the two big things I would do. Vacation and jujitsu.
Okay, very good. Now, kind of going backwards a little bit, porn slappers. They used to be everywhere. They're not as bad now in Vegas. Is that prostitution or what is it?
The little Hispanic guys
Yeah.
that tap the tags.
Yep.
Yeah, they're not out there as much, but what you have is, I mean, social media is blown up. So I mean, we used to, when I was in Vice the first time, we would go through the freaking yellow pages and look, and there would be like 50 pages of escort businesses. I mean, that was like really simple. Then you
Yeah.
have guys tapping, and then they would
Yep.
tape all the cards around the lamppost. And
Yep.
then you have now you still, and I was just there a couple days ago, you have billboards driving up and down the strip of girls to your room
Yeah.
and whatever.
Girls to your room. Yep.
So it's funny because I worked in another unit that does regulated and privileged licenses. So we would enforce anything that fell under that umbrella. And so one of them is escort license, which escort license is a privileged license. Nobody gets an escort license. All of those businesses get a different license, which is not regulated. So it doesn't have the same rules, and I think it's called out call promoter license.
Okay.
And so those guys circumvent the prostitution part, and instead of saying escort, which an escort is not illegal, it's when I always say this, it's when pink parts want to touch is when it becomes prostitution.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's like you're good. So if you want, like, you come to Vegas and you're like, Jen, I want an escort to go to dinner with me to a show, which it means you just want a female companion for
Right.
you to go to these places and enjoy the conversation of the company. That's fine. And when it crosses it is when you
There's
do
sex.
exchange a price for a fee or a
Right.
sex act for a fee. So these alcohol promoters are still very prevalent.
Okay.
They still, pimp will put their prostitute in one of those
Hmm.
because it's calls. The calls are coming in. So you can easily go, hey, I need you to go to the Bellagio, room 1128. Call me when you get there. Call me every 15 minutes, or I'm going to
Ah,
call you every 15 minutes to check in to make sure it's
yeah.
not the cops.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
something
I've
else.
worked one of those. I went and applied for an escort business
Yeah.
and went and worked 2 out calls for that. And where they don't say nothing. They say you're an independent contractor. When you just come here and you drop the fee off that you owe to us, and right after the call, but you have to call back, call back, call back to make sure I didn't get arrested.
Yeah.
And so you keep calling, and then I come back an hour later and I give them a fee. And so what I would do was I would tell them, oh my gosh, this guy was a two-pump chump. Like he was done. Here, I'm giving you a tip. All I had to do was blow the guy, and here's a tip. He gave me $1,000. So
Wow.
now what are they accepting? Prostitution money
Right. Right.
because I've declared this is where the money's coming from. I mean, they could easily go, oh, no, wait, we're not taking this because that was prostitution money. You were just to escort. That's not what they do. They
Okay.
know what's going on.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So
So
what
that was
advice?
a fun event, though.
I'm sure. So
That was good.
what advice would you give someone who was thinking about joining law enforcement today? Generic.
Um, to really, if you're thinking about joining, I just had this conversation yesterday with a dad, and his kid is really interested in police work. He thinks it's a cool job. He thinks, he's going to bring him all this money and all this joy and whatever. But the kid doesn't like to do paperwork. He missed the deadline on turning in some paperwork. I'm like, dude, that's the way to get into it. But
Yep.
the thing is, like, if do a ride along, do a couple ride-alongs. And after a couple ride-alongs, you still love it, get into the job. And then when you get into the job, take care of yourself. Make sure, find balance, stay grounded, and be with your people, meaning your family and your friends,
Yep.
especially if they're not cop friends. Find
Absolutely.
friends or keep your friends that are not cop friends,
Correct.
and really find that balance in your life, and you'll be fine 30 years later.
Okay. What do you think about legalizing prostitution?
I don't like it.
Why?
Uh, for one, remember we were talking about the pimps, right? You're
Yeah.
not going to eliminate the pimp problem. You're just going to validate the girls being out there paying a guy who has turned them out, which we call it turned out, a girl who didn't wake up one day and go, I want to be a prostitute when I grow up. They were coerced, they were trafficked, they were forced. And so you're just going to validate that in Las Vegas. Now, I've been to the brothels. I've been to 2 brothels out here in in Pahrump where it is legal.
Yeah.
And um, it, I remember the first one I went to, I went and just me and my friend had a discussion about my body, my choice, and I was like, no, you don't just wake up and do this and want to. So where
Right.
are we going to go with it? So let's go to a brothel and interview some girls.
Okay.
So 'cause she worked at NPR at one point at the time.
Yeah.
And so we went and we left there like just sad. Like
Yeah.
sad that these girls are waiting around. They have to stay there. They're contracted at these brothels. They give 50% of their money to the house.
Right.
After that 50%, you have to pay the rent. You have to pay the doctor's visits. You have to pay for your
Like,
supplies that you
yeah,
need.
laundry or whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Like then you end up, who knows, 25% of that money that you get to go back with. Like even if you got 10 grand for the night, and that's amazing if you would get that. But 5 grand and then 2,500. So like really who's winning still? You're a pimp. You're a pimp. That's
Yeah.
what the brothel is just an organized pandering situation. I mean, that's still not, to me, is not good. And the reason why, like, I look at the dynamics of every girl that I've ever talked to about pandering, they have a story that is traumatic.
I can
Is
imagine. Yeah.
wasn't healthy, yeah, wasn't a healthy lifestyle, wasn't healthy growing up, mom, dad, whatever. They were molested. I don't know what the statistic is, but it was in the high 80s, 90s that these girls were molested as kids.
Mm.
So it's not so now you look at the relationship between sex and intimacy and sex and devaluing the purpose of it, or
Yeah.
whether you come from a religious viewpoint or you just come from a mental viewpoint. You take out what should be meaning for procreation, for intimacy, for romantic relationships. You just said this is fucking for money.
Yeah. Wow.
It means nothing.
Yeah, that's cold. That's cold. All right. Your company, Covert Blue LLC. Why did you start it and who is it for?
So I started Covert Blue LLC. I was training for the last 10 years and I worked for a couple different companies. And my cousin, who has been doing this for 29 years, it's his 30th anniversary this summer of starting undercover training programs. And he was like, Jen, you just start your own and you can do whatever you want with it. And I said,
Yeah.
great. So I started it, and one of the big endeavors that I have right now is to create the biggest women's undercover and investigations training that has ever been. My goal is to get 150 women in this room, and we're going to talk about undercover operations. We're going to talk about vice and narcotics investigations. Because remember, we went back to that.
Yeah.
If I can train 40, one will make it. But if I can train you to be a great investigator in these crimes and to support your fellow officers, even male narcotics guys. So what I'm doing is in February, I'm having the women's training. This will be huge. It'll be in Vegas. It's going to be, I mean, I really am creating the biggest undercover school that is solely trained by women undercovers or previous undercovers. So
Okay.
solely trained by women, only for women. And so the rest of the training that I provide, I can teach anyone to be an undercover. I mean, any guy, any girl, anybody. I can also teach about investigation. So I was like, let me put together some training and speaking engagements as well for cops all over because my
Yeah.
cousin's retiring. So I'm going to try to take that torch and just continue on with the knowledge that I have, right? Because
Yeah.
you hear me, you see I'm not just a one trick pony. So if I can't keep this all to myself, right?
Right.
That's not beneficial for the future of law enforcement. So if I can share my expertise and my training and my poo-poo stuff that happened and the great stuff that happened, then it's only going to enhance everyone else after me.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple of Facebook questions for my Cops and Writers Facebook group. Real quick.
Oh,
Francis Sheldrick asks, no specific question, but I'm interested in hearing the setup for going undercover, how backup contact is handled, what equipment is used, if any, and of course, her most tricky moments. I don't want to give away tradecraft, but how about
yeah.
her most tricky moments, like where maybe the pucker factor was pretty high?
Yeah, there was one case that I had that so I was at Mandalay Bay and I met this pimp and he was talking to me. I was like, oh, I don't know why for some reason. And I learn this as I go, I learn what not to do the next time. And I don't know why I told this guy, I was like, oh, I already made $150 doing a blowjob. And he was like, well, give me that money. I said, well, hold on, let me go to the bathroom real quick. I didn't have $150 on me.
Yeah,
But the crime at the time was not only did I have pandering, but I also had living off the earnings of a prostitute, which that would be me giving him the money of $150, knowing that it was done through fellatio
yeah,
or a blowjob, and he would accept it. That would be two felonies, right? So I was like, oh shit. I was like, I don't have that $150. So
yeah,
let me go to the bathroom and then I'll give it to you. So luckily we were very close to the bathroom. I go inside, I'm texting him like, hey, I need $150. This guy wants $150. I think if we do that, he thinks it's off prostitution earnings. And you're just like trying to do this because I can't spend all day in the bathroom. I
yeah.
already said this to
How
this
close is
guy,
your
like,
cover team though? How you're never by yourself.
I mean, you're in a casino, right? You can be
Yeah,
anywhere. You could be sitting on the fountain. You could be sitting on a bench.
yeah,
I mean, very, very close. When we do pimps, we had minimum minimum six guys surrounding me at some point.
I
There
would think
might be
so,
some
yeah.
that are out of sight.
Okay.
One's usually 100% one has eye to eye with me.
Yes.
They can see. But now I go into the bathroom, right? So I'm going to the bathroom. I'm like, hey, I need 150 bucks. So they're scrambling together to put 150 bucks
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, it's a bunch of
So
broke cops. Yeah.
yeah, they're like, when you come out, just put your hand behind your back. And I was like, okay. So I come out and I rejoin him and we start. I said, well, let's walk over here. I want to see what's going on. So I put my hand behind my back. They hand me the 150 bucks. I pull it out. I said, you still want that 150? And I said, dude, that's all I made from a blowjob. He's like, oh, but if you give it to me, I'm going to save it for you so you won't spend it. And then we're just going to build this enterprise. And he goes on and on
Oh
about this
God.
whole fucking thing that he's
Yeah.
going to do, right? For me, security, teach me how to, charge more money and all this other stuff, right? So I give it to him. Well, at that time, the guy, I had this like sheer, not sheer search, but I had a shirt on and my nipples were erect because I don't know, they just were, right? So the guy comes over and he's so happy. I mean, when I gave him that money, he was like on cloud nine. And then he went and he flicked one of my nipples
Oh my
with
God.
his finger, right? And I was like, I'm like, hey, I'm like, this fucking mother piece of shit. So,
That's
so we start going, and I give the signal. We go. I knew where we had to go, kind of to kind of get him into custody,
yeah.
safely and not in the middle of the casino. And we did. And I said, that fucking guy flicked my nipple, and they took him into custody with the minimal force necessary use. That's all I can say.
Did you charge him with SA? Did you charge him with sexual assault?
No, we didn't. I didn't.
Oh,
We just did the two pandering,
oh
I
boy.
I don't think we did. I don't remember. We didn't do SA, I know that,
Yeah.
but might have done battery. I don't know, a simple
Yeah, I would have
battery,
done
but
something because fuck him. That's
but we
like,
wanted, yeah, fuck that guy. But we
yep.
wanted the two felonies were great. Like, and that's what was great is once I got, and that's the thing about the girls and their pimps and when they actually are victims, because I had a pimp, just as a long story short, I got this pimp. We take him into custody. We arrest him. The next day, I go to the office, and this detective goes, "Hey, you know who that was?" And I was like, "No, who is that?" And he tells me who he was, and he goes, "I've been looking for that guy. He's pandered a 14-year-old."
Oh
So
God.
my felony pandering, only validates that other pandering case that he has against the juvenile, right? Because the
Right.
juvenile can be like, "Oh, she's full of shit. She doesn't know what she's talking about," whatever. It's like, no, the cop that you pandered, you said the same language and did the same thing to the 14-year-old. So
Wow.
that's why I love doing pimps, because if I could put a case on you, even if it got dropped because, whatever, got pled down to whatever or got dropped or whatever, normally it got pled down to like a trespass or something. They would then, as long, like if they got caught up again, I could use that as a prior pandering charge or prior sex trafficking when I got them as a pimp.
Wow. That's something. And then Catherine Kovacic asks, what sort of temperament slash personality traits make a good undercover cop?
Yeah. You have to be, some people might argue with me about this, but humility is one that but the ego really has to be in control.
Okay.
So I know this kind of probably sounds like contradictory, but because I was just talking about this with an ATF guy yesterday about ego and that your ego, my thinking I can do anything. I'm going to win this fight. And that's crime of conversation, right? So, I mean, you really have to like have it in your mind that you are 10 steps ahead of this guy and you know what those steps are going to be. If he says this, you're going to say this, et cetera, et cetera. You have to be like, your ego has to be quite inflated for you to be confident enough to come out and do these kind of things. If you're meek or you're timid, that's not going to work. It works kind of if you're a trick, but you're playing weak and timid. That's
Right.
where it works. But if you're
Exactly.
legitimately weak and timid, that ain't going to work. Being humble and I saw this a lot with some people is like they would do anything to put a case on the guy right then and there. But if I didn't get them right then and there, because me, I was like, oh, I fucked that up. I said something that turned the guy off or whatever. I didn't go and like force an
Yeah.
arrest or force a
There's plenty
conversation. I
more
was like,
people
have
to
it.
arrest. Yeah, there's plenty of fish
Yeah.
in
And
this
I'm
lake.
like, I'll get him another time.
Yep,
I'll get him another
absolutely.
time. And that was where like, entrapment
Yep.
and uh the government misconduct, like that kind of stuff I steered away from because I was like, dude, that's not me. I'll get you another day karma. I'll get you a
Yep.
call. So somebody,
Something
another
will.
cop will get you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then she
Yeah.
has a follow-up question. What was your most memorable arrest?
My most memorable arrest, and probably the one that got me out of Vice the first time or said I need to go do something else is I just had a new sergeant and we were going to do a reversal at 5 points and it's kind of like this weird road that kind of 5 points, 5 directions. And so I was working as a prostitute. I got out the first time, first run. And this guy drives by and I'm like, oh, it's like a Dodge Magnum wagon. And I walk up to the passenger side and there's a girl in the car and there's him and he kind of looks, he's got a full beard. He kind of looks like a Santa Claus in a way. And
Yeah.
this girl looks like Peppermint Patty, like
Okay.
short hair, freckles. She's wearing a striped bathing suit top and a plaid skirt. And she's just kind of like giggling and kind of like very, seemed very nervous, right? And so this was a huge track. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, are you ready to party? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I was like, did you pick her up, up further on the street? She's like, oh, she's not a prostitute. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm just like trying to figure out what this whole
Yeah.
story
What's
is
the
because I'm
dynamic?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, what's the dynamic here, right? So I keep talking to him and he's like, oh, do you like her? And I was like, oh, she's cute. I'm like, well, what do you want? And he's like, do you want to see her vagina? And I was like, sure. Like I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm thinking, right? Like at this
Right.
point, because nothing really ever throws me off. And he lifts up her skirt. She's not wearing panties, right? And I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, is that nice? I'm like, sure. Yeah, it's nice. I go, what do you want? And he said, hey, I want, long story short, he says, he wants me to teach her how to perform cunnilingus, which is to go down on her.
Yeah.
And then she's going to go down on me, and then we're all going to have sex. And I was like, all right. I was like, you didn't pick her up earlier? And he's like, no, 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 she's not a prostitute. And I'm like, okay. And then I was like, well, how much do you want to pay? And he's like, well, how much are you going to charge? I said, like 150. And he was like, oh, that's too much. And I'm like, well, how much do you want to pay? And he's like, oh, like 80 bucks. I'm like, 80 bucks? I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, so we got to go back to my room. And he goes, okay, that's cool. But do you know where we can get some rock? And I was like, this motherfucker has got what is going on here with the
Right.
rock and whatever. I said, well, if we're gonna smoke, I said, I don't smoke, but I know a guy who's in my hotel. He'll be able to hook you up, but you got to pay for that separate. And he's like, yeah, no problem, no problem. So I was like, cool. So I was like, okay. And I always would, me personally, would always just reconfirm what I have because one, the surveillance team needs to know there's two people in this car,
Sure.
right? Like there's two suspects, possible suspects to get out of there, right? So I go, okay, so 80 bucks, we're gonna all have sex. I'm gonna have sex with you, you're gonna have sex with her, you're gonna smoke, you buy that rocket yourself, whatever. He's like, yeah. So I said, okay, cool. So they take him into custody and they take her off, they separate her, and it turns out that was his daughter, his 16-year-old daughter, that he
Ugh.
had been molesting since as far as she could remember as 5.
Oh my Lord.
And so of course we stopped everything. We're like done with our operation.
Oh
And so
yeah.
I took that case on myself, which normally a UC doesn't also become the case agent. But I
Correct.
was like, fuck this shit. This guy's going down for every charge I possibly can charge him. So I arrested him for 2 counts of soliciting. He had a gun and a crack pipe in the car. He dressed her up in these unmatching clothes. I mean, she was pushing, I mean, she was 16, but I was like, I don't know. She could just be looking young, but she was 16. Um, the gun, the drugs, and then we ended up working the whole sexual assault, molestation side
Yeah.
of it.
Right,
So
right.
he ended up getting, I believe, 40 years. So I had to testify in court on that one. And I just remember the son. Well, one of the other things that was kind of stood out was when I was talking to her, she was like, yeah, this happens all, like maybe once a month.
Ugh.
Normally we go to this black prostitute named Thunder, but she was unavailable today, so now we're here. And I'm like, God just put you in my pathway, girl,
Right,
because
absolutely.
let's get this taken care of now, finally. And she said, she said, I know he was arrested before for molesting because my 32-year-old half sister still sends him, um, like lingerie pictures of herself
Oh,
to the
God.
house. So I look him up and he had an arrest in Florida for molesting that kid years ago. So they end up getting divorced. And apparently he comes to Las Vegas, marries this illegal woman, is what the kid kept saying. She said, my mom knows about it, but she made him sign a contract saying he won't do it again.
Oh,
And so and the contract's in mom's locker at her work. So then I eventually go to court. I testify. This was like the worst, like just the jury was just looking at me like this piece of shit guy, right?
yeah.
And I'm explaining all this stuff, explaining cunnilingus, and I'm explaining what he did, and she did, and all this stuff. Now he looks like he's probably lost 50 pounds. And so I get into the elevator when we're all leaving, and the son of this guy, because he was 2 years older than the daughter, or a
Yeah.
year older than the daughter, and the son goes, "Look what you're doing to our family. You completely ruin it," to the daughter. And
Oh,
I was like, and the daughter's like, and the mom, the daughter was told that by the dad that the mom was illegal, and if she said anything, that she would send her back to Mexico. And like, it was just like a mess. Like, I was like, I got to get out of ICE for a minute and go do
oh,
something
hell
else.
yes. That's just
Yeah,
disgusting.
that was just like the most, I mean, I don't sleep at night. I was like up, and then sexual assault had to get involved as well because they
Sure.
had to go even further to what we
Oh,
could have done.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
that
was a
poor kid.
mess. It was just so I hope the kid's fine, but that son was messed up
Yeah.
too.
The
Like
whole thing
he
is
didn't
messed up. I mean, yeah,
the
I
whole
mean,
thing's messed
technically,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, like the mom's messed up. Like it was just bad. And but the thing that was worse about it was that kid was so like she opened right up. It's not like it's very hard to get a kid to start opening up and being
Right.
trusting. She opened right up and she's like, "No, we do this all the time. I don't smoke the crack though." And I was like, "Okay, well, I believe you." But she's like, "But I do this and that, and we've been doing this for years." And I'm just like,
Oh,
this kid's like, I mean, the kid could easily go back. She could be a prostitute right now because
right.
that whole sex
How
is not valued the same
how do
way.
you go back to normal after a life of that? Or how you don't know what normal is. You think that is normal. If that's
Yeah.
your
Well,
life, you don't know any
yeah.
different.
You don't know what you don't know until you know. And then
Right.
if you know better, you can do better.
Wow.
And maybe, after maybe hopefully she got some therapy and some other stuff that went on and to not put the blame on herself for the things that happened and
Yes.
um, and he ended up telling them that he had cancer. That's why he lost 50 pounds and
Oh, okay.
because he was fucked because when you got a cop that literally witnessed, I mean, essentially the molestation, right?
Right,
Because he was
absolutely.
telling me
Yeah.
to molest her
Oh,
and you're fucked.
yeah. You're,
You know,
you're gonna be going away for a while. Yeah,
like
and rightfully so.
finally. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're done.
Oh God. All right. On that cheery note, uh, it's been so much fun talking to you, Jen.
Yeah, thank you.
How can people contact you and learn more about Covert Blue LLC and any other projects you have going on?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, Covert Blue LLC. I do only do trainings right now for law enforcement. I'm going to be working on a private security instruction training soon, so they can be aware of the pimp prostitution subculture. I'm on Instagram at Covert Blue LLC. You can find me on Instagram. That I really just post things going on in
Okay.
in our trainings. So yeah, visit there.
All right. Thank you again. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much.